across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very good afternoon. It is 3 minutes past 1. You are listening to Talk, the home of common sense. A very busy show ahead. A packed 3 hours. Breaking this afternoon, Farage bounces back. Why are Reform UK, after the worst month in their history, ahead in the polls? I think the answer is simple. Because I think illegal immigration is the greatest concern of the British people. I think it's our number one problem. But what do you think? Is illegal immigration a national emergency? My phone number is 0344 499 1000. Text the word TALK in your message to 87222 or leave us a voice note. And as the saying goes, let's talk. An array of guests across the political spectrum, but that's the conversation I want to have today because the country faces a lot of problems. The highest energy costs in the developed world. We've got sticky inflation, non-existent growth, an ever-expanding debt pile. We got problems, but is immigration at the top of that pile? I need you to help me with this, to navigate this important conversation. It's all about your opinions. This is the home of common sense talk, and we shall kick off with Dolan's dispatch. Is illegal immigration a national emergency? Well, does the Pope have Catholic leanings? Do bears relieve themselves in the woods? How does an annual cost of £3 billion a year not represent an emergency? You heard me right, £3 billion a year, which means that the overtime that you're taxed on, the taxes on your pension, and on the petrol that you put in your car and the pint that you drink in the evening doesn't even touch the sides when it comes to the eye-watering cost of illegal immigration. £3 billion a year. Are you telling me that's not an emergency? How does the devastation of local communities like the small East Sussex town of Crowborough, which is accommodating 500 illegal immigrants as we speak, not represent an emergency? Those local residents who in this leafy suburb are anything but far right, they're just normal, centre-ground, middle-class people, they're now driving their children to school, creating gridlock. Women are opting out of walking home from the pub on their own in the evening, something that used to be the norm. All of that used to happen before this madness occurred. How is it not a national emergency when people in this country are being harmed, like Rhiannon White, murdered by a man accommodated at a migrant hotel where she was working, murdered in cold blood with a screwdriver? How is it not a national emergency, given that the security forces are on record as saying that some of these undocumented men, and let's be honest, it is mostly men, have terror links? How is that not an emergency when you have the word terror in that sentence? ISIS using the boats because of our open borders. The Taliban, most recently, the Telegraph reporting that Iran, the most wicked regime since the Third Reich, placing operatives on these vessels. It only takes one to produce a Manchester arena, and tragedy ensues. How is this not a national emergency when the vast majority of these people, 70, 80, maybe even 90%, will remain in the country? How is it not an emergency when genuine refugees who really are fleeing war and persecution are placed at the back of the queue? How is it not an emergency, and this is where I reach out to the woke progressive left, how is it not a national emergency when these migrants are dying in the sea? Now, I know that the solution is complicated. I get it. Deploying the Navy will be hazardous and may cause some of those dinghies to sink. That would be a human tragedy and politically unpalatable. However, when you consider deploying the Navy, exiting the ECHR, revisiting the Refugee Convention, which was designed for a different era and a different world, when you consider tearing up the Human Rights Act and the Equalities Act, it all feels like the right thing to do and worth trying when it's an emergency. So why do I take the view that this is an emergency rather than just an unfortunate problem? Well, because illegal immigration is existential for the country, actually, and it's a humanitarian, economic, societal and national security disaster. Now, it's wrong to demonise these people crossing the channel, but given that we don't know their background, some will be criminals. Some will be a threat to the safety of our citizens, and yes, in particular, women and children, and some will have terror links. Why on God's earth is that not considered an emergency? Am I missing something here? You only need one of these people to cause harm to a British citizen, and you've brought the whole system into disrepute. Now, the whole thing is pretty wild. We've got big problems in the country, but is this an emergency? Is it our number one problem? I would say it is. And I think it's interesting, listening to the words of Emmanuel Macron, the very much centre-ground, probably centre-left French president, a moderate political figure, who said quite bravely a couple of years ago, we cannot accept the misery of the world. Which is why, if we don't tackle this emergency right now, misery will become a daily part of our lives. 0344 499 1000. Is illegal immigration a national emergency? Chloe Dobbs is a broadcaster and political communicator. Afternoon, Chloe.
Hello. Ian's looking a bit different today, I must say.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Ian's wearing different glasses and a different suit, but the same common sense, I hope. Chloe, really good to see you. The language about this is important, isn't it? Whether it's just a problem, if it's unfortunate, or whether it's an emergency. And I was discussing this with our brilliant producer, Finlay, before we came on air. And I said, well, the reason why you need to frame it as an emergency is because if it's an emergency, the authorities will do something about it, which right now they are not.
Yes, I think that the situation in Ceuta has been both a pretty stark warning to our country, but also has given us hope. It's given us hope that if there is a will, there is a way. If it really reaches a disastrous point and you treat it like an emergency, that you will find a way around the law. You will find a way to sort out the situation. What they did in Ceuta is they realised, OK, we can't force them back to Morocco, but we can stand in front of the water fountains. We can stop them getting any food, water or shelter, and then they will have no choice but to go back on their own volition, because you can't survive that long without water. Now, some people might say that's cruel, but I say, I'm sorry, if your country's being invaded on a scale that large, you should do whatever it takes to turn the situation around. And look, the situation isn't completely resolved there. You've still got some Moroccans still there causing chaos and endangering the locals, but they were able to send back 53,000 out of the 60,000 that turned up in 48 hours like that. We could do that in the UK if we wanted to, and I think that reforms plan Operation Fortress. Yes, the French may have said they rejected it, but we can just do it anyway, and the French will just have to suck it up. And after we had that mega dinghy set on fire yesterday, not only did that show just how dangerous this trade is and why it needed to be stopped, but we had British vessels going in, picking migrants out from that dinghy and taking them back onto French soil, which just goes to show British vessels can go in that water and drop migrants off on French soil, as Operation Fortress would have the Navy do.
Whether it was the last Tory government or this Labour government, there's a common theme, Chloe, a lack of a can-do attitude, a lack of urgency.
That's the thing. They're doing what they feel that the minimum that they feel they need to do in order to satisfy the public. It's definitely nowhere near satisfying the public. But you've seen this in Andy Burnham's comments when he finally broke his silence. First of all, the amount of time it took him to say anything about the boats just showed how much of a lack of priority it is to him. And then when he finally broke his silence, he said, oh, well, the numbers are starting to come down a bit, so I don't... there's more to do, but it's not really that much of a priority. priority. We had Yvette Cooper was initially the Home Secretary. I mean, there's a picture of her online holding a refugees welcome sign, which just goes to show her attitude to this topic. And then Shabana Mahmood was our Home Secretary. And yes, she does talk tougher than Yvette Cooper, I would say, but she used to spend her free time going off and travelling to places where illegal migrants were coming in, handing them food parcels, encouraging this illegal trade. So you've got to have people in the job who actually believe in what they're supposed to be doing.
Most definitely. I think you're absolutely right about that. The other thing that's missing, alongside a can-do attitude and urgency, Chloe, is political will. And our big question today is whether or not illegal immigration is an emergency. I would humbly suggest the public think it is, because although they've had the worst month in their history, Reform UK are ahead in the polls, and I think that speaks volumes about where the British public are at.
Yeah, I think that there has been a renewed focus on the boats after Chris Philp went across to France and in the Channel and filmed the French gendarmerie saying, we are told not to intervene, we're told to just let them go. Yes, that may have been a Tory MP doing that filming and making those comments, but I think most people looked at that footage and thought, that's shocking, but I don't trust the Tories to be the ones to fix it. So this is giving me more reason to want to vote for the Reform Party, who I think are more likely to implement the things that Chris Philp is saying we need to implement. I mean, you know, it's summer recess. There's not a huge amount going on in Parliament, so it was the perfect time for him to go out and film that footage, and it went absolutely viral and made people absolutely furious about the fact that we've given over £1 billion to the French to stop these boats, and they are just taking, you know, they're taking the mickey. They're pocketing the money. They're spending the money on giving them an escort to the centre line of the Channel, where then Border Force picks them up and gives them a taxi all the way back home to Dover.
Well, it's interesting looking, isn't it, Chloe, at what happened in the United States in 2024, and they're normally a couple of years ahead of where we are culturally and politically, and upwards of 75 million Americans voted for Donald Trump. He won by every metric in both houses, popular vote, swing states, you name it. It was a resounding victory. And I believe that many of those voters, many of those millions, Chloe, don't like Donald Trump. But his offer was very clear. I will end woke. I will close the southern border, which is the equivalent of Dover and the Channel, and I will tackle inflation. It was a clear offer to the public, and the Americans, notwithstanding their concerns about Trump's personality, they gave him their vote. I think the same thing could happen to Farage in 2 or 3 years' time.
Yes, I absolutely agree. I think that the scandal around Nigel Farage's finances, I do think that it has hurt them a little bit in the short term, but I think in the long run, people are going to get behind reform, so long as the Labour Party fails, as I expect they will, to stop illegal migration. This is an emergency, as we've called it. That's what the public view it to be, and they don't think that the government are treating it as such. And the reality is even if a politician has got a little bit of baggage, if they seem like the only viable option to stop the number one issue or one of the number one issues facing this country at the moment, then they're going to vote for him. And Donald Trump has a lot more baggage than Nigel Farage does. I mean, Donald Trump has, you know, accusations about being a rapist and whatnot. He's never been proven guilty in a criminal court.
He actually successfully he sued a TV network for saying that he was, and received a multi-million-dollar payout.
But still, it's a lot more baggage and controversy to come with you than accusations of not having your finances in order.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, Chloe. Before the break, and delighted that you're with us till 1:30. Do you think that illegal immigration is the biggest problem facing the country? Because we have to decide what we're most worried about. You've got the economy, you've got the highest energy costs in the developed world, we've got a rather divided society. We've got shoplifting and property theft and violent crime. What is our biggest problem? Is it immigration?
I do think that it is, actually, because I think although the economy is something that you can turn around if you put in some pro-growth policies, you can turn it around fairly quickly. It's not the same with immigration. If you don't stop the flow of people coming in, once those people are here, it's very hard to get rid of them. And so many of them end up, if you think about the long-term cost of the economy, the long-term cost, these people who come here as illegal migrants and those who come legally but don't really contribute and have huge families whose kids will go to our schools, they live off the state system, they get benefits, social housing. The cost to the state in the long run is going to be absolutely huge. And that's not even mentioning the cultural implications. Do you want British culture to survive? It's not going to if you keep on bringing in people from different cultures to us who have far more children than we do.
Well, I think that's a brilliant point. Folks, we need your help with this. Is illegal immigration a national emergency? Is it the biggest challenge facing the country? 0344 499 1000. Let me know your thoughts. More to come.
Do Reform, however, have a plan to build more prisons?
Yeah, 100%. So we will have overseas prisons. We will deport all foreign prisoners to their point of origin. You know, like Labour has done with some, by the way. Do you remember one of them one of an illegal migrant from Ethiopia, they sent him back straight away. Yeah. You know, there was no returns agreement, or they had no problem with that. Why can't that just happen? Why can't that just happen now? So that's one thing we do. So we should free up about 12,000 spaces just doing that.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk, the home of common sense. Is illegal immigration a national emergency? That is our question. My phone number, 0344 499 1000. I'll be taking your calls on that very shortly. The point is that I speak to so many experts and they give me a million reasons why this can't be tackled. Well, we did have the pandemic, didn't we? We had COVID, and that was treated as an emergency. And therefore, people were paid to stay at home. We had the Nightingale hospitals. We had a rather authoritarian vaccine rollout. So when the authorities want to flex their muscles and treat something as an emergency, then they're more than happy to. I think what's missing is the political will. What about this? And it's a rather depressing message. And it's hi, Mark. It is a national emergency, but it's too late, mate. It is over for our kids. This from Paul, who says, Mark, I find it extraordinary that any serious politician thinks France are going to stand by whilst a British warship unloads hundreds of immigrants that they've worked so hard to get rid of. Paul, thank you for that. Claire in the Cotswolds. Good afternoon, Claire. How are you? I hope you're very well. The question regarding whether immigration is a national emergency, it's more than an emergency, Mark. The life support machine is about to explode. OK, well, look, let's get to more of your thoughts shortly on that. Live down the line with me is the brilliant political commentator and broadcaster Chloe Dobbs. Chloe, 9,300 domestic abusers are going to be released early. This is a national scandal. The only thing I would say is I don't quite know how we're supposed to blame Labour and this new Prime Minister.
I think that both Labour and the Tories have blame to be given to them on this. The Tories failed to build any prison spaces, or very few of them. They allowed the walls to basically crumble in these prisons. Not only did they not build any more of them, they didn't maintain the current ones. Labour came in a situation where also in the prisons, in order to shave costs, they had got rid of some of the more senior prison staff that were more expensive, and just had some junior, newly qualified prison officers, and not enough of them trying to run the show and keep these prisoners under control, which meant that for the prison officers that were there, it was often very and remains to be very unsafe circumstances. We've heard all sorts of stories of prison officers being attacked. So Labour inherited a difficult situation, but I don't think that they have approached this the right way. I think that there are things that they could do. You've just spoken, Mark, about how when you call something an emergency, suddenly you can have all these Nightingale hospitals built. Why can't you do the same and build Nightingale prisons? And in fact, the idea was kind of brought about by Labour when it came to riots, because after we had the 2024 Southport riots, we then had Timpson, who was the prisons minister, say that they were going to build a load of emergency makeshift prison spaces ahead of the 2025 summer, so that if there were riots, there would be prison space to put all the rioters behind bars. Now, we didn't have riots in 2025 as may have been expected, so those weren't needed. But it just goes to show that if there is the will, there is a way. We also, you've spoken about the fact how on immigration there isn't the political will to stop the boats from coming. The same goes for deporting foreign offenders, immigrants who could be sent back to their home countries. There are about 10 to 12,000 foreign offenders in our prisons. That would free up a lot of space. And why also are we letting out violent offenders, killers, PC Harper's killers? It's absolutely insane that those killers are going to be let out early. You could go for, particularly in the women's prisons where there are a far fewer number of violent offenders, you could send out early people who are in there for fraud and drug offences, and completely rule out anybody who's done anything violent in nature. And I think that you would find the prison spaces if you do all those things.
Why has Kemi Badenoch given a former neo-Nazi a second chance?
I think that this is an absolutely terrible look for the Conservative Party. That this person has been jailed twice. He was jailed for planning he was planning, he didn't just put some anti-Semitic joke online. He actually planned an event in a Jewish area that was he called an anti-Jewification event, and then he was put behind bars again for I think harassing a Labour MP who was Jewish. He also, I think he's guilty of burglaries and other things as well. So he's got quite the history. It's not like this is someone who wrote one dodgy tweet like Lucy Connolly and then realised that was a bad idea. And now he is someone who now actually teaches anti-Semitism training in the Met Police and whatnot. I don't know him personally. Maybe he is a decently reformed individual, but I am sceptical, and I think that it's really not a good look for the Conservative Party when one of their selling points has been lately that Kemi Badenoch is the best leader when it comes to talking tough on anti-Semitism. After we had the we had an attack in Golders Green, she was the one who was out on the microphones talking tougher about what we're going to do about anti-Semitism than any other leader. And if she brings in this person as a candidate, it's not going to be a good look at all.
Aren't you a little bit guilty, Chloe, of double standards? As someone on the right that rails against cancel culture, oughtn't you to be celebrating this opportunity for the guy to redeem himself, to atone for his crimes, and to make a positive contribution?
Look, I think that cancel culture is a little bit different because, as I said, if it was the case that this guy wrote an anti-Semitic tweet once upon a time that was a mistake and it was, you know, a joke gone too far and he redeemed himself from that, then I would say that's someone who is a victim of cancel culture who should be given a second chance. But this is someone who, as I said, has been jailed on multiple occasions, has done a whole host of horrific things. I wouldn't exactly call that person a victim of cancel culture.
Chloe, you'll never be cancelled on my watch, partly because you talk far too much sense. Chloe, the Supreme Court talk a lot of sense too, don't they? And they ruled in favour of, I think it was 4 women in Scotland, that biological sex is a thing. But it appears that as this advice is now rolled out, this new guidance on single-sex spaces comes into force, which means that, let's say, in an office or a cafe, there has to be a gents' toilets and a ladies', like the good old days. It appears that women are being left to enforce their single-sex rights in some locations. That's a worry, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that the fact that it took so long for this guidance to come out. We had that Supreme Court ruling in, I think it was May last year, and it wasn't until June this year, over a year later, that we finally got the guidance. You'd think it would be pretty straightforward. They were umming and ahhing for so long. They clearly, put this guidance together against their will, because in this woke culture at the Equality and Human Rights Commission, they probably think that trans rights are paramount and that women's rights don't matter and that pronouns are the most amazing thing in the world. I think that's why it took so long. And this is the body that you are expecting to back you up and potentially go to court and pay for you to go to court if your right to a single-sex space is not honoured in whatever institution or business that you are in. And I don't think people trust them or believe they have the resources in order to do that. So it will just be left up to us to, for example, confront a man if we find a man in single-sex spaces. And I had the herd of trans activists come for me and sending death threats, threatening to report me to the police and all sorts, because I called out someone on Twitter who, after the Supreme Court ruling, was in the women's loos at Waterloo when it was very obviously a biological man. So there are pretty stark consequences if you try and just stand up for yourself without any legal backing.
Chloe, you are on fire today. Loved every syllable of your contribution. What an interesting conversation. Chloe, we'll catch up soon. Chloe Dobbs, political commentator and broadcaster. Is illegal immigration a national emergency? That is today's question. We're going to get an answer from a former number 10 advisor next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Pamela has messaged the show. Mark, immigration is without doubt a national emergency and should be our #1 priority. All the other important challenges our country faces would be easier to solve if we solved immigration first, because immigration has caused most of the other problems we have. Reform's Operation Fortress is an excellent policy, but unfortunately, the time to do it is now. It is 5 to midnight. Pamela, thank you for that. I'll get some more of your feedback shortly, but let's get the views of Oscar Reddrop, who is a former number 10 advisor to Boris Johnson. Hi, Oscar.
Good afternoon.
Really good to see you again. Well, certainly, in a very unscientific way, I can tell you that the calls and the texts to this show are declaring illegal immigration an emergency. What's your view?
I think Pamela, who just sent that text in, is broadly correct. I think it cuts across nearly every single issue we have in this country. And I think it cuts across something, again, in an unscientific way that overlaps the economy, schools, the NHS, everything. But it's a sense of fairness.
Yeah.
And I think that's what pains so many people. And look, like, it's funny, I was in Richmond at the weekend. I don't live there, but it's like, it's, on a summer's day in Richmond, you can walk around it and kind of think, God, there's nothing wrong with this country.
Right.
Isn't it amazing? Isn't it beautiful? And then you realise that actually a lot of the policymakers, a lot of the politicians don't live in the areas of this country that are really affected by illegal immigration. And then you start to think, well, I can see why a lot of these politicians who live in these parts of the world don't see it as an emergency or as an issue. But for many other people out there, millions and millions of people, they are absolutely on the front line of it, the pressure on our services. And again, that sense of fairness and justness. The one thing I would say with Operation Fortress, if I may, is I like what I think is admirable about it is that it feels drastic, right? And sometimes drastic policy is required for, those drastic measures and drastic problems. It does rely, unfortunately, and this is the fly in the ointment for me, to a degree on the French. And I have found our policy of outsourcing or relying on the French for parts of our immigration policy, like returns, embarrassing. I mean, why on earth would the French, what is in their interest to help us with this issue? And it shows naivety and weakness on our part. For me, and then people might roll their eyes and groan, but if you can get a returns deal with a country like Rwanda, and the mistake that I think was made was that we didn't match the policy of Rwanda, which I think was ahead of its time as a policy, with something like leaving the ECHR. I still think that is our best bet.
That's right. And if you leave the ECHR, you're then able to deport foreign criminals and potentially illegal immigrants, and you can certainly detain them. And all of that adds up to a strong deterrent.
Yeah, absolutely right. And look, like the other thing, right? So we saw it yesterday, it's not just, people die making this crossing, okay? Yeah. Like this is serious stuff. And there is a humanitarian perspective for it. And I actually think Reform talked to that pretty well in terms of Operation Fortress. So there's that angle to it. I just think, and it's a real blind spot of Andy Burnham. I mean, you can just tell. I mean, people have talked about his very, very strong start. I think he's had a very, very strong start talking on issues that he feels really safe and comfortable with. And not to minimize them, because, it is good stuff in and of itself, but it's things like buses. It's like very small, and again, not without minimizing, but important cost of living measures. It's that kind of metropolitan mayor stuff. He feels very safe and comfortable on that.
Yes.
And he's very good on TikTok. Again, not minimizing that too much because Keir Starmer was a terrible communicator. But when you see him talk about this issue, when he's on holiday at the moment, but just before he went on holiday, when you see him talk about illegal immigration, you can sense how uncomfortable he is. And so if you're listening or watching this and you think, oh, Andy Burnham's had a good start, maybe he's actually the guy that can sort this issue out. no chance.
No, well, I agree, because he can reduce our electricity bills by around 45 to 50 quid a year, which isn't going to touch the sides in terms of the costs that my viewers and listeners face in their daily lives. He can have other little measures which are kind of, you know, tweak around the edges in terms of what people are going through. It's thin gruel, isn't it? The big ticket issues are inflation, low growth, debt, energy bills and the boats. And I think that he's found wanting on all of the above.
I mean, I have not heard a real plan or him even really talking in terms of growth and growing our economy. You know, and I, again, like if any political party out there or leader, if you can ensure that we have control over our borders, God, it sounds so basic, doesn't it?
I know.
If you can ensure,
I
know, genuine control of our borders, and you can start to kickstart some, even if it's quite modest, growth into our economy. All these other issues, all that we spend you feel politicians spending endless amounts of time talking about, that just feel like window dressing, will start to sort themselves out. And until then, voters are going to feel like, and that silent, vast majority in this country will feel like they're being let down.
Briefly, Oscar, why were the Conservatives so late to the party when it came to solutions like exiting the ECHR?
Oh, I'm going to try and give you a really honest answer, not a silly politician's one. So there's a slight pause here as I look. I think, if I'm honest, Rwanda had its issues, okay, but I do think that was a giant step forward in terms of that.
It was already working. Ask the Irish Taoiseach who complained about Rwanda because the boats were going past the UK straight to the Republic.
Absolutely right. I think we just didn't quite have the is bottle the right word?
Yeah, political will, balls.
The political bottle to go, well, if we've got the bottle to come up with a plan like Rwanda, which is ahead of its time and very, very smart.
And if you've got the bottle to get Brexit done, which happened under Boris Johnson,
then why
and if you've got the bottle to shut the country down for 2.5 years because of COVID, this was the missing piece in the jigsaw, wasn't it?
Yeah, then we just need to leave that. We need to leave the ECHR. And that just wasn't, that last step was left out. And so whoever takes over, and it's not going to happen with Burnham, despite, very briefly, some Labour lords who, privately agree with the idea of leaving the ECHR, until that happens, again, this all just feels like window dressing.
Well, I know, and this is where I'm struggling with my friends on the progressive left, Oscar. I'm trying to convey to them that illegal immigration is really bad for poor people, and poor people are their political constituency, but they just don't get it because they're in Richmond, they're in Islington, they're the lanyard class, they don't live in the real world. How ironic that they seek and claim to represent the poor of this country. Oscar, just briefly, before I get to Ed Shackle, do you believe that the Boris wave was a mistake?
Well, of course it was. I mean, I can see why.
Does Boris think it was a mistake?
I think his thought process, which I can also understand, God, that feels like fence sitting, but I can also understand, is that just after COVID, when, Ukraine, and the Ukraine war, when we needed workers, and obviously the Ukraine war and the huge amount of people that came over from Ukraine, I can see why you can walk off into the sunset and go, okay, not ideal, but for now, I can understand why that has happened. But look, if the Tories cannot convince voters that they have changed ultimately and that they will do the drastic action that is needed on legal immigration, they're going to be far off it to come the next election.
Always a treat having you on the show, Oscar. Thank you for your candour and insight. Oscar Reddrop, former number 10 advisor under Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Remember him. Is illegal immigration a national emergency? Is it the biggest problem facing the country? Is it the number one concern of British voters? Let's get the views of Ed Shackle, who is the director and head of qualitative research at Public First. Hello, Ed.
Hi, Mark. Good to be on.
Well, look, it must be a red letter day. I said the word qualitative correctly, which is a real treat. Listen, Ed, let's get to the meat and drink of this. Do you think that immigration is now the number one concern of the British public? I would humbly suggest that it is. that was the only explanation I could think of, that after the worst month in their history, Reform UK are ahead in the polls.
Look, in terms of the polling numbers, the cost of living remains the number one issue, and it has done for a number of years. On the, we track these numbers, and we have for a very long time. Now, that also falls into concerns around the economy and other things, whereas immigration has steadily increased and is a really, really key concern. Now, what I would say is that for a number of voters, that is their number one concern. And while you're right in saying that Reform have dropped in the polls in recent weeks, there is a percentage of the country who feels so strongly about immigration that it's very hard to imagine Reform falling below 20%. Now, I don't want to make predictions here, lots of things could happen, but there is a group of the public who feel very strong about this issue. I would also say, whilst the cost of living remains the number one issue in our polling, when we do our qualitative research, so a big part of my job is to go out and speak to the public wherever they are. And we call this immersive research. So I will go and spend time in the pubs and cafes and speaking to people as they go about their day. Immigration is the most emotive issue with the public. It is the issue that makes them most angry. It's the issue that makes them most frustrated. So while they have other concerns, undoubtedly, and as I say, the cost of living still remains the number one concern, immigration is the issue that gets the public most riled and they are most frustrated about.
Yes, and I think if you look at the economy, that is impacting people's lives hugely. And of course, that's a very good point, that really the cost of living is the number one issue, and it has been for a long time. The issue with immigration is it feels existential to people, doesn't it? It absolutely is an assault on the idea of fairness, of order, because those pictures of people landing on our beaches is unedifying. And it creates the impression that the country is being changed or taken away from the people, and like you said, that is super emotive. People feel that they're losing their country.
When you look at the poll, when you track the polling numbers during the summer months, immigration rises as an issue. That's obviously not a surprise, because we are seeing images from the small boats and from of people making crosses, and that, as I say, that makes people very, very frustrated. And part of these frustrations also is because they feel that their lives aren't getting any better. When we speak to voters all over the country, you tend to get this feeling that their lives haven't improved for a very, very long time. And so there is this sort of residual frustration, which is only growing. And I would say to a new Prime Minister coming in, that don't underestimate the anger that exists in this country and the frustration that exists in this country.
Most definitely. And so, Ed, Reform UK, I mean, if we look at where they're at, to a degree, it's a single-issue party. How unprecedented, therefore, that a single-issue party should be ahead in the polls? I can't think of another example of that in recent political history.
It definitely reflects, I think, the collapse of the major two in terms of trust among the public. We are seeing a situation now where our politics is incredibly difficult to predict. It's very volatile. I often say to people, I'm not sure if there are any safe seats anymore, which means that it has created this space for reform. I also think that when you speak to the public and you ask them about reform, that they are very much associated with immigration. That is the number one issue that people think about reform, which means it will be there are challenges for reform to go beyond that base of where they are now. Because, as I say, there is a group of public who think that is the number one issue and they care most about. But to win over other voters who may be a little bit more sceptical, they're going to have to increase their policy platform and be taken seriously on other issues.
Is there too much focus on immigration, Ed? And are people whipped up into a frenzy over it, which is disproportionate?
Well, as I say, I think for a group of people, it is the number one issue. But if Reform are serious about winning the next election, they are going to have to be taken seriously on other issues as well. They're going to have a policy platform that, if Burnham called a snap election, now they would be able to confidently talk about other issues, because there will be a lot of voters who are floating at the moment. It's interesting that normally people have always voted Labour or always voted Tory, etc. They're now open to other ideas, which means they can be convinced very easily of not voting Reform. I think that it's worth thinking about with Reform that they shouldn't take these voters for granted, that if the Tories or another party were seen as credible on immigration, that people don't feel this a deep loyalty to Reform. One of the problems about being a new party is that you haven't got that long-standing support that others have benefited from in the past and have had voters stay with them for a very long time. So Reform could easily lose voters.
Ed, lovely to see you. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Ed Shackle is the Director and Head of Qualitative Research at Public First. Is illegal immigration a national emergency? Is it the #1 problem facing the country? Your call's next.
Do Reform, however, have a plan to build more prisons?
Yeah, 100%. So we will have overseas prisons. We will deport all foreign prisoners to their point of origin. You know, like Labour has done with some, by the way. Do you remember one of them one of an illegal migrant from Ethiopia, they sent him back straight away.
Yeah.
You know, there was no returns agreement, or they had no problem with that.
Why can't that just happen?
Why can't that just happen now? So that's one thing we do. So we should free up about 12,000 spaces just doing that.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Is illegal immigration a national emergency? Here's a voice note from Sean in Grimsby.
Now, I've never been Farage's biggest fan, but I hope he gets into government next time. I really do. We can't defend our borders. We can't defend our interests abroad. We can't fix potholes. We can't build prisons. We can't lock up criminals. The only things that we can do in this country are release perverts and cop killers, allow men and women's sports, and pay more in benefits. We are not a serious country at all, and all the other parties have had a chance to change this, and not one of them has been willing to. So I hope they get in. I really do. Great show, mate.
Sean, thank you for your kind words. Really honoured that you're listening to the show, and I think you've outlined the issues facing the country brilliantly well. All we're good at doing is handing out benefits to people sat at home twiddling their thumbs, not knowing the difference between a man and the woman, all the woke madness, and not being able to control our borders. It's 100% true. We tolerate shoplifting now, which should be completely unacceptable. We tolerate burglaries, which is decriminalised if you look at the numbers, vehicle crime, sexual assaults, you name it. The country is a joke, or not a serious country, as you put it, Sean. You're so right. And Sean, by the way, not even Farage's big fan. Here's my thought. I don't care who does it. I don't care who saves Britain. If it's Andy Burnham, Kemi Badenoch, Rupert Lowe, Nigel Farage, as long as someone does. Simon is in Bournemouth. Good afternoon, Simon.
Hi there. Thanks for letting me contribute to your show.
Well, thank you. And Simon, I think you're going to tell us that Bournemouth has been at the sharp end of the consequences of illegal immigration.
Yeah, there's two components to my calling. I'm sort of lucky enough to, no one's going to feel sorry for me anytime soon. I'm lucky enough to have two homes. I live in Bournemouth most of my life. Strategically, it's for work. It's the best place for me to be.
Yeah.
But I also live in Harpenden. And like it's like I'm the best equipped person to turn around and say that we've become a patchwork quilt, because in Harpenden I'm quite happy for them to be led by Liberal Democrats. Everything works, the streams are clean, there's social cohesion, everyone's living in a bubble, lots of politicians live there, the world's great. But in Bournemouth, on the other hand, it's desperately needing reform. Or something even further across. The social contract with everyone has just completely collapsed. It's a disgrace.
I mean, it's shocking because Bournemouth was the jewel in the crown of the English seaside in the 50s, 60s and 70s. It was a very high-end place to take a holiday. And now, I mean, can you paint a picture of Bournemouth in 2026 for me, Simon?
Intimidating. I've got a 13-year-old daughter. She's not allowed nowhere near town. We've all got kids similar age. We wouldn't even let them go down in groups because there's fighting age males walking around everywhere. Harry Redknapp was on the show, one of the shows.
He was on with Jezza on Breakfast, yeah.
Yeah, and he summed it up. He said it word for word as every person that lives in Bournemouth sees. We just don't know where we are anymore. There's no police presence. Last time I went to the police station to report something, the whole of the front was smashed to pieces. Apparently, there'd been a problem with the roundhouse. The people had gone up there and somebody had been arrested, and there was some sort of backlash from that. But the other thing that I wanted to contribute is this is how I'm just a regular British guy that contributes to the Treasury, and I'm happy to do it. But I contributed £28,000 in tax last year, and which is a reasonable amount. I work hard, but when you look at it, I basically can only afford to pay for 2/3 of a migrant to live here. They're 41 grand each. So how does that make me feel?
How does it make you feel that you're working long hours, you've got stress, you're taking risks in your career and in your life, and yet the tax that you pay doesn't even touch the sides when it comes to illegal immigration, which, Simon, is a problem that doesn't even need to exist?
No, and it's just like we look at all the fabric of our country, the things that need money. I want my £28,000 in income tax to go towards schooling education, to disabled facilities, to people that have contributed that need our help now, not to somebody that just shouldn't be here. And I think that I'm on the same page with so many people. I think the 20% the strength in reform that's probably built on those foundations is going to grow.
I think it is, Simon. I think the fact that they're ahead in the polls after the worst week in their history, the worst month, I should say, tells you everything. The public don't care. They want change. Simon, more power to you for the work that you do, for the taxes you pay, for what you contribute to this country, and your lovely daughter, who I'm sure is the apple of your eye. And what a shocking state of affairs that he can't let his young daughter pop into Bournemouth and go and get a frappuccino at Costa and have a little, put your head around the door at Primark with her friends. She can't do that in one of the great English towns of Bournemouth, which used to be the jewel in the crown of the English seaside. That patch of coast is truly shocking. Simon, keep the faith, because change is coming. Sean is in Henley, which is also a nice part of the world. I don't think you're beset with illegal immigrants just yet, are you, Sean?
Hi, Mark. I love the show, and I love you, by the way.
Oh,
no,
that's very kind of you. Thank you, Sean. Appreciate that.
But as I was saying to your colleague, that it is a popcorn moment, this at the moment, with Andy Burnham coming in, because he just doesn't get it, but he does get it. But coming in on this soft way of, hi, guys, it's me, Andy, I'm going to fix everything, I'm going to do this, doing that, and then he goes on holiday. And it's like everything's happening around. Rapes are happening. People are taxed at the highest. This was what was brought in by the Conservatives, and then it passed on to Labour.
Yeah.
And now they're saying, oh, well, we have to make difficult decisions, but there is no room. There is no money. There
Correct.
isn't anything that he can do. So where are we going to go from here? But, hey, look, He's just set up a number 10 in the north. How much money does that cost? How much money does security cost?
Several million pounds. Several million.
What, a day? A day? A week? Because that's where he's going to go, isn't it? He talks about Nigel Farage being he has the highest, vote share, literally, from the last election. 4 million people voted for him. They didn't even get 4 million people for the 406 MPs for Labour. So this is a guy who I respect. I don't care about the 5 million. Maybe he should have declared it. Maybe he should have done that. But what I care about is my country being British.
Yeah.
And we are not British if we're bringing everyone. They should have a bloody Geiger counter in the House of Commons to say how much money we're spending on these illegal people every day, how many people have left, how many people have come in.
Good people leaving.
No, because they come in and they say, we're looking for work, Andy Burnham says. We want to give them a different life. We're closed. Every one person that comes in, 10 people, we're closed. Well, I haven't got the money to keep spending for that because we're broke.
And you know that people leaving the country has gone up, and it's good people. It's young professionals who have looked at the UK and they've decided that there's no future here, Sean.
Well, that's right. I mean, I did probation a few years ago, and it was broken then, and that was like 10 years ago. How you get people out to say, "We'll paint the fence, we'll do that." And they turn around and say, well, you can't because it's slavery.
Oh, for God's sakes. Sean, thank you for your kind words about the show. Call me again soon. And it's quite clear that what Britain needs is new management. Lots more to come. Is illegal immigration a national emergency?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Common sense is right. Good afternoon, Mark Dolan in for the brilliant Ian Collins. Today, tomorrow, Friday, and then, of course, back on Weekend Breakfast at the weekends. Lovely to have your company. I hope you are well on this rather humid afternoon. It's a Wednesday. I hope things are playing out well for you. Breaking news, Reform are back in front. A shock new poll puts Nigel Farage's party on 23% ahead of Labour's 22%. So is the burn and bounce running out of steam? Meanwhile, France hits out at reforms plans to use the Navy to send migrants home, while Spain show exactly how it's done with their own Navy, clearing thousands from Ceuta in no time. Thousands of domestic abusers are about to walk free under Labour's early release scheme. More than 9,000 over 3 years, 3,000 a year before they've served their full time. And common sense prevails. Official guidance now says that toilets and changing rooms must be based on biological sex. But why are women still having to enforce those rules? Meanwhile, Kemi Badenoch defends picking a former neo-Nazi for a Tory council seat. Is she right to give the guy a second chance? And the Cambridge professor whose story keeps unravelling, claiming he was on the TV show 7 Up years before he was even born, and said he'd built water points abroad with WaterAid, a charity that doesn't send volunteers overseas. Is this another example of DEI gone mad? And our conversation this afternoon is a very simple one. Can you believe that Reform UK are ahead in the polls after the worst month in their history? So why are they ahead? Is it immigration? Today's question, is illegal immigration a national emergency? Is it the number one problem facing the country? 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note, and as the saying goes, let's talk. And let's do that in the company of the senior researcher on nationhood at the Prosperity Institute, Guy Dampier. Hello, Guy.
Hello.
Lovely to have you on the show. Do you think that immigration is the number one problem facing the country?
I think immigration is definitely the most salient issue facing most people. I'm sure that the economy is there. That is, energy prices are a massive thing, but immigration is the thing where everybody can see. If you don't fix that, you don't have a country.
And if you look at the performance of Reform UK in the polls, I think you might agree that they've had a month to forget the £5 million scandal that won't go away in regard to Nigel Farage, his snap decision to call a by-election in Clacton-on-Sea. There's questions about finances around Richard Tice, you name it, and yet they're ahead in the polls. And of course, their big message is we will stop the boats. Is that why they remain such a popular force in British politics?
I think you can't reduce it purely to immigration, but immigration is definitely the selling message. And that is why Reform, having done the first press conference they've done in a while, went straight back to talking about immigration and in particular the small boats.
What's the biggest problem, illegal immigration or legal migration into the country?
Well, in terms of numbers, the biggest problem is legal immigration. And actually, in terms of people claiming asylum, legal immigration is actually one of the biggest contributors to that, because you've got a lot of people who come in either on very low-skilled work or who are sort of doing Mickey Mouse degrees that are somewhat fake, and then they claim asylum as they reach the end of those visas because they just don't want to go home. So legal immigration in terms of numbers is the biggest problem, but that at least is under our control. That is something that any government can change if it wants to relatively quickly using what's called the immigration rules. You don't need primary legislation, you just change the way you're doing it and you can issue it literally overnight. On illegal immigration, on the other hand, you've got a much bigger problem, and that's why although the numbers are smaller, that is the trickier thing to deal with.
And of course, that's in relation to the fact that we don't know who these people are. Some may have terror links, some may have a criminal past, and we just don't know.
Well, not only do we not know, we can't find out, because one of the curiosities of this is that in order not to alert the country from which they've come to the fact that they are now claiming asylum in the United Kingdom, we won't do a check where we would send that country a request and say, do these people have a criminal record? Do you know them? Do they have terrorist links? Whatever else. We won't do that because of the fact that they are asylum seekers. So it is actually deliberate policy not to know where they come from and what they've been up to.
Now, Guy, it's my view, because it's interesting, you're the senior researcher on nationhood at the Prosperity Institute. It's my view that mass uncontrolled immigration, both legal and illegal, is the theft of a nation from its own people. That's how I would frame it. And I just don't understand. I cannot understand why administration after administration have allowed this to happen, particularly under the Conservatives.
Well, I think you're looking at sort of probably two big issues. On illegal immigration, your fundamental blocker is human rights law. And the difficulty is, because it's called human rights law, it's very difficult to be opposed to it. It automatically sounds like it's going to be bad. But until you actually tackle those, you won't fix the problem. And to be fair, it also has to be said, a lot of that human rights legislation is now built into our law. We've got sort of 20 plus years of judgments which have been made on the basis of human rights laws. So unpicking that does require careful work. And, you know, the Conservatives did look at doing that in their time in office, but just never actually did it. Then the second thing, which is legal immigration, fundamentally the issue there is that it's an easy button to press. You know, we have a lot of problems in this country. We've got net zero, which means that energy is very expensive. Well, if you want to turn that back, you've got to still fix a lot of things. It's going to be very costly. You're going to be abandoning those net zero commitments, which the Conservatives made and which Labour have made. And only Reform, I think, have really opposed, or the Conservatives now moved in that direction as well. If you're looking at something like planning, if you change the planning system, you'll make it easier to build factories, you'll make it easier to build homes. That's fantastic. But house prices will probably go down. And a lot of people have most of their capital, most of their wealth invested in that house. So there's a lot of losers potentially for all of these things, or there's a lot of difficulties. Immigration, on the other hand, it's a button you can press, and you add people to the economy. By virtue of the fact that they're there, your GDP has gone up, even if your GDP per capita has actually gone down.
Yeah.
And therefore, it's very easy just to hand out more visas.
Most definitely. And therefore, what we've seen over 2 decades is the erosion of nationhood. And I think the political establishment have underestimated how angry the public are about that.
That's definitely true. We've had riots pretty much every year since 2024. People have had enough. There is simply a limit to what you can do. I mean, I think it's worth remembering in the 2021 to 2024 period, the so-called Boris wave, we added several million people to the population. I think it was population growth of about 3.8%. So we're currently at a point where I believe the best estimate is 19.6% of people in the United Kingdom were born overseas. Now, that will include some people who are British and were born overseas, people whose parents were in the British Army on the Rhine, things like that. But those are clearly a minority. We're talking about nearly 1 in 5 people in the country having been born overseas, almost all of which is driven by relatively recent immigration. That's a huge shock.
That's going to impact national identity. It's going to impact our communities. You're going to have, you know, people from certain backgrounds, certain cultures, certain religions living a parallel existence. And we're seeing it played out in our great cities, and it's leading to huge tensions.
It is, and we can see, I mean, when we had the 2024 Southport riots, obviously a lot of that was very upset people from the country, but you also saw within certain ethnic minority groups counter-rioting, particularly in Birmingham, where the police allowed them to basically run amok. They attacked at least one person, they attacked multiple journalists, and nothing was really done about that. A lot of this is just a numbers game. If you add a lot of people, even if the migrants want to integrate, they will be living in areas which are so heavily migrant that they cannot integrate because they're just not meeting enough British people in order to do that. So there's no real way to fix this without essentially stopping the flow of new people until the current stocks here can be more dissipated.
Why has the idea, Guy, of nationhood, the concept of nationhood, become so politically unfashionable?
Well, I think it's increasingly difficult to do in a increasingly immigrant country because you have to work out what everybody shares. And the truth is, as the country gets more diverse, you can gain lots of benefits. You gain access to people with new skills and new languages, new cuisines, whatever else.
Cheap labour as well.
And cheap labour, but you increasingly don't have a common centre. And so you can sort of see it in the discussion of things like British values. The only things you can find that are unifying are so generic as to be almost meaningless. You know, things like tolerance. Well, everybody hopes to be tolerant, but what makes a French person different from a British person? I don't think we'd really say tolerance.
Well, actually, I don't even think that tolerance is a universal quality within our country now. If you look at the weekly so-called peace marches, which were a festival of Jew hate, to paraphrase Jake Wallace-Simons. And I think it's a real problem. Guy, can we get our country back?
We can, absolutely. I think it's worth bearing in mind a lot of recent migration is just that, it's recent. Many of these people don't have citizenship yet. They may have residency, but if they have residency, that's still within the power of the British government to re-examine whether or not they should have that. We also have the ability to turn off the taps. I think the example to look at here is America in the 1920s. They'd gone through the Ellis Island period. The country had become massively more foreign in a very short time period. And what they did was they massively reduced levels of migration to the country, and they brought out a very deliberate nation-building policy. So things that we think of as quintessentially American, like saluting the flag and the Pledge of Allegiance, those actually originated in that period as deliberate attempts to build a common culture because they'd been through precisely this mass immigration process.
But we're not going to get our country back on the watch of the progressive left, are we?
Well, I think it's very difficult for them. Fundamentally, they believe in diversity as a natural good in and of itself. They don't like the idea that you're going to have to say to some people, Britain does have unique cultural characteristics, and if you want to be British, you've got to actually join those.
Well, there you go. And Guy, what a privilege to have you on the show. This issue of nationhood is so important. You must return because I'd love to continue the conversation. It's critically important and matters so much to my viewers and listeners. Guy Dampier is the senior researcher on nationhood at the Prosperity Institute. Thank you, Guy. Herbie is in Harrow. Herbie, is illegal immigration a national emergency?
Of course it is, Mark. I mean, you say it's a national emergency and financially an emergency. It's costing us an absolute fortune. It's ever increasing because every time a boat comes over, so we've got more expense to pay out. When's it going to stop? We're going to run out of money soon and run out of space. I don't think anything else.
Well, you're absolutely right. I took that call earlier from in Bournemouth. Was it Simon in Bournemouth? I think it was. And, pardon? Was it? I think it was Simon. He pays Herbie about 30 grand a year in tax. Well, that doesn't even cover the cost of one illegal immigrant for a year. And we've had 70,000 since Starmer won the election in 2024.
How can that be, Mark? How can we carry on like this? It can't carry on. It's impossible. We'll be bankrupt before very long, and we're going to run out of money. And, of course, our own people need looking after as well. So where's it all going to end? Where is the sense in it to let people come in illegally, not paying a penny and giving them everything? You know, we pay everything, get nothing. So where's the sense in that? I just don't believe it.
What about Andy Burnham? Do you think he might wake up to this issue, especially if he wants to win the next election? Is there a chance that he will pull some levers and stop those boats?
Well, I think the people behind him will be pulling these levers. I don't know. They'd be pulling these strings to telling him what to do. I'm afraid they don't realise what reality is all about. They're not involved in it. They don't see the dangers. That's the problem, Mark. They do not see how this affects the nation as a whole and the people here as a whole. I've got no idea whatsoever.
So, Herbie, do you think that there is anyone out there that can tackle this issue?
It's a hard and fast decision to have to make. OK, Reform have been on about it for a long time, and hopefully they will do something. We've only got the one chance now to perhaps put this right before it gets out of hand and will never be replaced. We've got to give the chance perhaps to Reform to give it a go, and hopefully they'll be able to achieve to do it. You know, legally and humanely, it needs to be done. But we need to do something, Mark. It can't carry on indefinitely. It's not possible.
Here's a question, just quick devil's advocate, Herbie. Do you think we focus too much on immigration, that we don't celebrate the benefits, that we overstate how much of a problem it is?
No, Mark. No, certainly not. Look, when immigration was controlled and you let the people in that were supposed to be here or was wanted, there was no problem. But you've got an invasion now. Let's be honest. Let's be open. It's an invasion now. It's not just illegal immigration coming over to do what we need and everything else. It's an invasion of people coming here to live off of us. You know, the people that are paid into the system. That's what they're doing. They're living off our goodwill, and hopefully they're going to make a killing out of it, which is what they're doing.
Herbie, thank you for your call. Let's speak soon. You are listening to Talk. Is illegal immigration a national emergency? More to come.
Do Reform, however, have a plan to build more prisons?
Yeah, 100%. So we will have overseas prisons. We will deport all foreign prisoners to their point of origin. You know, like Labour has done with some, by the way. Do you remember one of them one of an illegal migrant from Ethiopia? They sent him back straight away.
Yeah.
You know, there was no returns agreement, or they had no problem with that.
Why can't that just happen?
Why can't that just happen now? So that's one thing we do. So we should free up about 12,000 spaces just doing that.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Now, anger is growing over Labour's early release scheme, with around 9,300 domestic abusers set to leave prison early, prompting serious questions about public safety and the protection of victims. Plus, another twist in the campaign over the release of one of PC Andrew Harper's killers. Furious police officers. Just get that correctly, fix that one. OK, so let's get reaction to this story from Vanessa Frake, a retired prison governor and author. Hi, Vanessa.
Good afternoon, Mark.
Lovely to have you on the show. Can you understand why people are so concerned about this early release scheme?
Oh, without a doubt. I think Andy Burnham had a real opportunity to turn the Gawk report around, because clearly Keir Starmer was absolutely not interested in it at all. And I think Andy Burnham didn't want his popularity to wane suddenly, so he thought he'd do what he could, but he hasn't done enough. And to me, that shows weakness, because I think he could have done much more. He could have included manslaughter. He could have included domestic violence. You know, there's an actual online petition regarding this now, and it's well over 100,000 signatures. I looked at it just before we came on air. So yeah, absolutely, I can understand how people are absolutely furious with this. But you know, this is something that we've known since March, when it went through Parliament. The Conservatives and other opposition MPs tried to get this righted at that time and were voted out by the Labour Party. So, you know, I think it's a real mistake.
Why have Labour approached the issue in this way?
Because it's easy, isn't it? It's an easy way to make more prison spaces. It was scheduled for around 6,000. It's now down to about 5,000. But that, of course, includes those who have been jailed for manslaughter, domestic violence, and all of the rest of them. So, you know, I think we have to really think about not only we're releasing these people, but these people need to be monitored. You know, the security people who do the tagging are not ready. The probation service certainly isn't ready to have all of this extra work. And I think it's a disaster waiting to happen. The first person who gets seriously assaulted or worse by one of these released, there will be uproar.
This is not a crisis of Labour's making or Andy Burnham's, though, is it?
No, it's not. Look, this goes back 30 years. When Jack Straw was Home Secretary, he had an early release scheme in which he released 80,000 prisoners, because, as I said, I think the Labour Party think that it's the easy option. It isn't. It isn't the easy option at all. There are many more options that we could take. Look, we went through COVID. We built Nightingale wards in days.
Yeah.
We've got empty bases. We've got empty RAF, army bases, fenced off, lockable. You know, it doesn't take rocket science to think of other alternatives. We've got 6,000 foreign nationals who are convicted, who, you know, we have treaties around the world with over 100 different countries, including Albania, Zambia, Nigeria, etc., that these people could be on a plane and home. But again, you know, that of course will take time because of the European Court of Human Rights.
Yeah.
But if you were really the Prime Minister of this country and you really wanted to happen, you could. And I am convinced of that.
And this whole sorry tale reminds us that the prisons system, criminal justice system altogether is not a high political priority, probably because people don't think about it when they're voting.
Well, I think they do, but what they think about is, look, every party wants to be hard on crime, so they say lock them up and throw away the key. And that's fine. I have no issue with that. But what I have an issue with is the lack of investment in our current prisons, the lack of building program, the lack of investments in our staff. You know, it wasn't like we didn't know that overcrowding was coming. The forecast for 2030, when allegedly these 14,000 places are coming online, is over 100,000 prisoners. So it's not like we're not aware of it. And a bit of, you know, the Ministry of Justice is incredibly good at solving a problem after the horse has bolted. We have an escape, we look at escapes. We have releases in errors, we look at releases in errors. And that's pretty much what they're doing now.
And where we're falling down is twofold, wouldn't you say, Vanessa, which is public safety and rehabilitation?
Well, you know, and I read an article in the Telegraph where Andy Burnham said that he was thinking about public safety and the fact that, you know, if the prison service broke down and ran out of spaces, that would affect public safety. Well, to my mind, he's affecting public safety by releasing dangerous criminals far too early who are not ready for release.
So what should he be doing? What levers can he pull right now, Vanessa? Well, you said there's no easy wins, but what are the best options going forward?
Well, I think if you looked at the women's estate, we've got 3,400 just over female prisoners. Out of that, and people say women aren't convicted for violent offences, but out of that, there's about 58% that are convicted for violent offences. So that still gives you around 1,500 beds. Those people are mainly in the for theft, drug addiction, drug-related crimes. Those could be monitored and made better, serving their sentence in the community. Shut a couple of female prisons and open them up as male jails. To my mind, that's the easiest solution and a quick fix. There are other things, you know, like I said, empty bases around the country. But again, you'd have to staff them unless you used the forces to do that initially until you could staff them. But let's not forget, you know, these 14,000 places, they're nothing without the staff to run them. So I hope they're putting in procedures to get the staff ready to open all of these. But for every place that they open new, we have untold number of old Victorian prisons that put cells out on a daily basis because they're unfit for habitation.
And Vanessa, finally, the issue we've got is public safety, is rehabilitation. We also need to make sure that people are punished for their crimes because that sends out a very clear message. It's definitely a big problem across several parties. It's going to cost money. I mean, we've calculated that the cost of illegal immigration, the headline figure annually is around £3 billion, although that's going to be more when you consider that most of those people will remain in the country. But if you've got that ballpark figure of £3 billion, that would go a long way to fixing this crisis, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. Of course it would. But certainly for the infrastructure within the prison service, you know, our old decrepit Victorian jails, yeah, absolutely. To invest in our staff, better training, better retention rates.
Yeah.
You know, the list is endless. But you know, I think this fix is an easy fix because it pacifies some members of society, not all, obviously, but it shows that he's done something, even though it's just a little bit.
Vanessa, always a treat to have you on the show. Thank you very much for joining us. Vanessa Frake is a retired prison governor and author and a Reform UK supporter to boot. Here's a voice note from Sarah on the prisons.
Morning, Mark. Great show. Please tell Vanessa it's well over 100,000 for that petition. It's 262,410 signatures so far. I've been sharing the life out of it, and so have many of my friends. So it's doing really well. And these guys cannot be allowed to come out, little beeps. Anyway, thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you, Sarah. Keep going with that petition, critically important. Shirley is in the Cotswolds. Shirley, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mark. Mark, I'll be brief, but to the point of what I want to say. Migration is definitely a national emergency, and the reasons are, I live in a beautiful holiday area, the Cotswolds, and friends have just been to the Lake District. And I know we all hear about Bournemouth, which is one of our seaside resorts that used to be a beautiful town. And everything is changing. And I'm just going to talk about my area.
Yeah.
The councils are continually having meetings with locals in their thousands because of the amount of building that's going on here. In beautiful Cotswold villages with honey-coloured stone and all of the history that goes with it, they are plonking just loads and loads of bog-standard square estate houses. And we have so many lovely tourists here at the moment taking photographs of all the beautiful buildings. And I'm not sure why they're going to come in the future when it changes. And what I would love to say to Andy Burnham, and I know that we can't wholly blame him yet, but because of the sounds that are coming from him, he's not too concerned about the amount of migration.
Yeah.
I would love to ask him, we don't know where he is on holiday, but I would like to say, where have you been and why did you go? And the answer will be, I wanted to see some historical buildings, or I wanted to go to the souks in the Middle East, or I wanted to go to the beautiful beaches, wherever, in Maldives or somewhere. And of course, they all love to travel to these gorgeous places, but why are they trying to ruin ours? People come here on holiday to see our beautiful areas, and they're taking them away.
Well, that's right. And you're absolutely right about these mass housing projects, and they haven't got local infrastructure. They don't have shopping areas. They don't have pubs, GP surgeries. There's a question mark about, getting water and reservoirs, all the rest of it. It's a big infrastructure challenge, Shirley. And then you've got illegal immigration, which is turning places like Bournemouth into a war zone. It just feels, Shirley, like we are going backwards as a country.
Yeah, and Mark, there's a lot of villages around here. They have charity fetes, summer fetes, and, the locals in the village, we all contribute a baked Victoria sponge or whatever to the cake store and everything else. And that is our tradition. And yes, I know that there will be lefties who will say, well, if you've got migrants in the area, they can bring something from wherever the country that they're from. That doesn't matter. It's taking away from our own traditions. And, like it or not, Mark, yes, these people are coming just because they want to, but as long as we're paying for them with our taxes, I'm afraid we can speak up about what we don't like about this country and the way it's going. So I'm quite valid in my opinions, and I don't care anymore if I'm called a racist, because I know I'm not. But I just really feel strongly about our pubs and restaurants all being changed and knocked down and, immigrants being moved in. It's just not on. So I am really angry about it. And immigration is the source of everything that's wrong with this country. And it's not... we've all got lovely friends who are from other countries, but it's the speed that it's happened, and it's just turning the whole face of the country to a different place.
Shirley, you've put it so well. I'm very, very grateful that you called, very lucky that you called, because you've articulated it far better than I could. I don't know anyone, Shirley, that's anti-immigration, but it's about the scale and it's about the quality of immigration, what people are bringing to the country, and also integration. And this failed multicultural experiment, which not only doesn't expect integration, actually the message is don't integrate. because who would want to be British these days because we're so awful? Brilliant call. Shirley, you're a star. Call me again soon. It's a lovely part of the world, the Cotswolds, but being destroyed on a daily basis, as per Shirley's remarks. Lots more to come. Is illegal immigration a national emergency? This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk. Mark Dolan in for Ian Collins today, tomorrow and Friday. Now, new guidance on single-sex spaces has officially come into force, but the row is only intensifying. The Equality and Human Rights Commission have raised concerns that in practice women could be left to enforce the rules themselves, prompting fresh questions about safety, fairness and whether the guidance is actually workable. Let's get reaction from the journalist and choir leader, Janet Murray. Hi, Janet. Good to see you again.
Hi there.
What's your reaction to this? It's sad, isn't it? This should be Freedom Day for women, but it's not.
Yeah, I have to say that I hadn't really prepared myself for how much nonsense I would see online today, because this is, this is clarifying something that we've known all along. The Supreme Court ruling last year clarified the meaning of sex in relation to equality law. It means biological sex. And this is what we have been doing for 100 years and what we should have been doing all along. But I've seen so many articles, I've seen so many broadcast pieces, saying how awful this is for trans people, and really neglecting to talk about the real issue here, which is single-sex spaces for women, to protect women.
Well, we've seen local authorities and businesses drag their heels on this, notwithstanding the verdict of the Supreme Court.
I've lost you there for a moment, Mark.
I was just going to say, Janet, that we've just seen companies and local authorities and other public bodies dragging their feet on this verdict from the Supreme Court.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is about people not wanting to have uncomfortable conversations, because this has been a misinterpretation of the law that has been going on for years. So you've had employers, you've had service providers who've said, yes, however you feel, use whatever facilities that you feel. And now they're having to walk things back or to have difficult conversations. And I appreciate for somebody who has been told that they can use the facilities with the sex that they identify with, rather than, what is lawful, but biological sex, then this may be uncomfortable, but it is, after all, the law. Is what we should have all been doing all along.
Janet, I'm just a bloke, so can you please tell me and explain to me why single-sex spaces are so important to women?
Well, we know, as women, I think all of us know, that the majority of violence against women comes from men. And a man saying that he's a woman, a man putting on a dress or makeup, even a man having surgical or other medical alterations will never make him a woman. And that doesn't mean that we're saying that any man who identifies as a woman, or any man, in fact, is going to harm us if he comes into our toilet or changing room. What we're saying is that he is a man. And we can't pick and choose. We can't say, oh, well, he seems rather nice, or I get along well with him, or he looks like very passing. We can't pick or choose. We have to say no men at all. And I think that's the part that is really quite frustrating sometimes, that people cannot understand, that is that a man calling himself a woman or putting a dress on, or even having some sort of bodily changes, is never going to make him a woman. And that means he's still a man, and that means that he still presents the same kind of risk. We're not saying more risk, we're saying the same kind of risk. And you've probably heard the phrase, all men stay out so the bad ones stand out. But that's really what it's about. It's about safeguarding. It's about keeping women and girls and children safe.
And it just feels, Janet, like 5 or 6 decades of feminism and 100 years of progress for women is for nothing. I mean, I feel I'm living in a parallel universe. I can't process this, Janet. The world's gone mad. Let's take an example. You have the women's ponds in Highgate. These are natural ponds in Hampstead Heath, and for many decades they've been enjoyed by women, and it's female only. And I guess, dare I speak on behalf of my female friends that go, but they can relax because there's no guys around. They can be topless, they can be sunbathing, they can swim, they're not conscious about their bodies, they're not being watched. And a decision was made to allow men, or biological males that identify as female, to start using the women's ponds. Now, before the Supreme Court verdict, all right, there was a kind of grey area in the law, but the Supreme Court have spoken, they've laid down their judgment, and yet still biological males can use that women's ponds.
Yeah, and what that means in practice is they have 3 ponds that they can use.
Isn't that nice? So it's a man's world, isn't it?
Yeah, so they can use all the ponds, they can be wherever they want to be.
It's so great being a man. I love being a man because we can just go everywhere now.
Yeah,
we've won.
You can just go wherever you like. Yeah. And that is unfair. Yes, there's a safety aspect of it, but there's also, this idea of privacy and dignity. As women, we have to deal with things that men don't have to deal with. We also get gaslit by men telling us that they have periods, or they can have endometriosis, or they can have womb issues with their wombs or whatever. And, it just feels like it's just constant. Why can't women have spaces of their own? There's enough space for everybody. If somebody doesn't feel comfortable in either male or female, they can use a gender neutral space. But why can't women have spaces of their own? This has worked for over 100 years, and why now? Why are we suddenly saying that men can have access everywhere?
Janet, you're so guilty of dinosaur thinking. You need to listen to the biological expert on human anatomy, David Lammy, former Foreign Secretary of this country.
He thinks women can grow cervixes, doesn't he?
Correct.
Yeah.
Have you not done the science?
Oh, no. He as a man, I'm sure he knows. I'm sure he knows better than we do, yeah.
I mean, my big focus here is, what's my skin in the game? My skin in the game, Janet, is truth. I'm in broadcasting, I'm in journalism, and I don't want to be told that a biological male is a woman. I don't want to use the wrong pronouns, or even, may God forbid, plural pronouns for a single individual. I really don't want to butcher the English language and grammar, because truth is my North Star. Now, I'm on air every day, and I'll get things right, I'll get things wrong. I share my views on stuff, but I'll try not to say things that are not true. I'll be right, I'll be wrong, but I won't lie and I won't misrepresent. And that's what this ideology does. And it's interesting because I don't think it's only women that suffer, actually, Janet, because, for example, I go about my life and I'm driving around and I don't know. I mean, if I'm involved in a car crash or something, or I've made a mistake with a road rage situation, I always am more careful around men because I think men can be more aggressive and more violent. And if I'm being told that somebody is a woman that's actually a biological male, I'm vulnerable because I'm not, I'm not aware of exactly who I'm dealing with. I think that's a problem, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's really important in terms of, so many aspects of our public life. I mean, crime statistics is one example. As a journalist, I absolutely share, your view that we should be reporting the truth, even when it's uncomfortable, and we should be not giving people ideological versions of events. We should be telling them the truth. And one sort of really classic example is male crimes reported as being committed by females. If we don't understand who is committing crimes, then how can we stop them? But again, I saw an example. There's a BBC documentary that's just come out, which is called Red Flags, and it was about a female that had posed as a male and tricked another female into a lesbian relationship, even though she was straight. And it was really difficult to follow the programme because they were using male pronouns for somebody who had pretended... No, they were using male pronouns for somebody who had pretended to be male but turned out to be female, but then later said that they were. And somebody else is using they, them, it just makes things really, it makes it hard for us to communicate, to be honest with each other, in so many different aspects of life.
And I think actually it's a duty of care to both men and women, because what happens if a guy goes on a dating app and he hooks up with someone that seems really gorgeous, hasn't revealed that they are actually biologically male? How's that one going to play out? My greater concern is the safety and hard-won sex-based rights of women, but actually it affects the whole community. Another example I would share with you, Janet, is those unisex toilets. I think they're awful, and I don't enjoy using them either. And I feel bad being in there. When there's a cafe and it's only one type of toilet, it feels indiscreet. I'm zipping up my fly, and I'm just like a foot from a lady. It just is so wrong to me.
Every man and woman that I know in real life hates gender-neutral toilets because it just feels awkward. You come out and you're washing your hands. I was in, it was a market, I think it was in East London, and there was this guy like up into the sink, and my daughter was with me, and she was hiding in the cubicle. She doesn't want to come out because it was like gross man, like, coughing up into the sink.
Yeah.
Then there was a little lad, a teenage lad, who couldn't wait to get out quick enough because there were like girls and ladies there and stuff. And I think it makes all of us feel uncomfortable. All of the men in my life, that I know in real life, feel uncomfortable too, and we all need our private spaces, and if people don't feel they fit into either of those, then I feel we should be focusing our attention on creating more gender neutral spaces, or making sure that they're there if the facilities aren't good enough. Why do we just keep going over
But
this?
also, if you have a gender neutral toilet, Janet, I would humbly suggest you are taking something away from women.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, I do. I feel uncomfortable that in King's Cross, Granary Square, they replaced all the toilets there, and when I go in there, yes, you've got your lock at the law, which you're supposed to have your full length door and lockable and your sink, whatever, but I still feel really uncomfortable when I come out and I'm confronted with a male, because as a woman, for the whole of your life, you spend the whole of your life every single day negotiating. You even know when there's a male behind you, like walking behind you in the street, you can tell whether it's a man or a woman. I have, paid more money to get taxis home at night. I've taken different train routes that take me out of my way, so I'm not on my own. And in that situation with a male, I've negotiated, like many women, tricky situations with males. We are almost like programmed to feel uneasy, when we're alone with a male, or it could be multiple males. But it feels like no one wants to listen to that. Women don't have a right to say that, and if they're called bigoted. And to come back to an example you mentioned earlier about the dating thing, if you did end up on a date with a woman who turned out to be a man, you'd be called the bigot for saying, well, actually, that's not my cup of tea. You do you, but actually, I prefer to date women. So many things have been impacted on this, and that make many parts of life difficult.
Well, there was an outrageous storm when a lady that created a lesbian night in a certain venue was castigated and cancelled for making sure that there would be no biological males there. She suffered wild abuse. Janet, briefly, do you think this madness is going to end at some point?
I hope it's going to end at some point, but I wish I could feel more hopeful. I mean, this week we've had that guy, Soapy Molly, who, famously said he wanted to defecate on J.K. Rowling's head, talking about how it got a whole page in a newspaper talking about how he's going to go and pee in as many women's toilets as possible. And I think while we've got these kind of activists and we've got people kind of encouraging this, we haven't got enough sort of common sense people. And actually in the government, there's still a lot of, Labour MPs, for example, who are apologising, who are support, they just want to pee in peace or whatever. I'd like to say that this madness is going to end, but I think we really need the backing of government, of policymakers, and for them to get some common sense back. And
Janet, only a couple of seconds. Where are the feminists? What happened to the feminists?
The feminists seem to support men.
Makes sense, Janet.
Yeah. When I talk to women who share my views, they say, my feminism doesn't include men's rights, but theirs seem to prioritise men's rights. So. Yeah.
Janet, more power to you. Lovely to have you on the show, and I look forward to speaking again very soon. Thank you for sharing your thoughts on this important issue. The advice on single-sex spaces has come into force, and some women are having to police it themselves, which is an outrage. Janet Murray, journalist and choir leader. Breaking news, a 47-year-old woman has been arrested after 4 men were stabbed in Covent Garden in central London today. The Met Police said they were called to Endell Street at around 12:27 p.m. following reports of a stabbing. 4 men, aged 34, 39, 42 and 52, were found with stab wounds and assessed at the scene. The London Ambulance Service said it was called at 12:29 and sent an ambulance crew, a paramedic and a fast response car to the scene. There was also an air ambulance. All 4 patients were treated at the scene before being taken to a major trauma centre as a priority. The woman has been arrested on suspicion of possession of an offensive weapon and assault. We will bring you more when we get it on this developing story in Covent Garden. A 47-year-old woman arrested following the stabbing of 4 men. This is Talk, more to come.
Do Reform, however, have a plan to build more prisons?
Yeah, 100%. So we will have overseas prisons. We will deport all foreign prisoners to their point of origin. You know, like Labour has done with some, by the way. Do you remember that one of them one of an illegal migrant from Ethiopia, they sent him back straight away.
Yeah.
You know, there was no returns agreement, or they had no problem with that.
Why can't that just happen?
Why can't that just happen now? So that's one thing we do. So we just free up about 12,000 spaces just doing that.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Is it too much for women to have their own bathrooms? Neil is in Buckinghamshire. Hello, Neil.
Hi, Mark. How you doing?
I'm very well. Top of the afternoon to you. What do you think of this story?
Well, I've got one question, really, because I know when I need to go to the loo, I've got to go. So why, as a bloke, would you want a queue? Because most women's toilets, you've got a queue to get in. So why would you make this, unless you've got an ulterior motive? That's the way I look at it.
Well, what it is, Neil,
why are they doing it?
Because they want to protect the narrative, the fiction that they are a woman.
But you know, you're a man. You know it. There they go. I can't hold it that long at my age.
Neil, you are so right. I mean, they're idiots for wanting to join the queue for the women's toilets. It's a very fair point. Neil, thank you for that. Wish we had longer, but David is in Ipswich. David.
Hello, mate.
Illegal immigration, young man. Is it a national emergency?
It's a national emergency which we could solve with the French very quickly, and Reform have got the answer, but they're not explaining it properly. That's the problem with it. What they should do is go to the French and say to the French, look, your problem is that people congregate on the coast because they're trying to get across to the UK. If we stop that draw factor by just bringing them back to you, they won't come anymore, because they know they can't get across, because there's no way can they get from France over to the UK, so they won't come anymore. But it doesn't seem that we know how to explain this properly, but if Burnham had half a brain in his head and Macron had half a brain, they'd say, hang on, this is a good idea, this, isn't it? Because if we can't get across, you keep bringing them back to us, people won't come.
Yeah, if they can't get to the UK, they won't go to France.
That's right. Simple, isn't it?
It is simple, and I think what's missing, David, is political will. What about this scenario in a couple of years' time? Nigel Farage is Prime Minister and Marine Le Pen is French President. What happens then?
Well, I think she's pragmatic. She doesn't want all the fuss of having these immigrants all around her coastline, because it's bad for tourism, etc. as well. And I think they'd be pragmatic and say, this is a win-win, guys, isn't it? You bring them back, they won't come anymore, will they?
No. But, David, there's been a lot of criticism of this idea of the Navy being used, because many are arguing what's going to happen. The dinghies will sink and people will die.
Well, no. This is where it gets sort of blown out of proportion. What do we do at the moment? The French send a message to our coast guards and say, "Here, boys, you got a couple of boats coming out of French waters into yours. Can you go and pick them up?" So what happens is we go and pick them up, and instead of picking them up and bringing them back to the UK, pick them up and take them back to France.
Yeah, I mean, that is a very fair point. And the bottom line is, I think, that, David, this is not being treated as an emergency, is it? The political class accept illegal immigration and they shrug their shoulders.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think I just demonstrated how easy it could be solved. You've agreed with me, and the simple fact is that once we get Nigel in there, you know, and he goes to the French and says, this is what's going to happen, what are you going to do about it? Because it helps you. It stops us giving you millions of pounds, and it stops immigrants coming to your coastlines. Isn't it a win-win?
David, it's very interesting, isn't it? Because I think you'll agree Reform have had a month to forget. It's probably been the worst 4 weeks since the party was founded, having lost a couple of by-elections and not even really made a dent in the Greater Manchester mayoral elections, and then the £5 million gift to Nigel Farage, question marks about Richard Tice's finances, all the rest of it, George Cottrell. So it's been bad headlines, and yet Reform are ahead in the polls. Why is that?
Well, I think it's quite simple. Most people don't really give a damn about someone giving Farage money. They think, what's going on at the moment? It's a big witch hunt. And because the other political parties can't put a dent in reform, it's just they're dragging up mud after mud after mud. And when you look at some of the comments on these, a number of people who go, this is just mudslinging. I'm voting reform definitely, because I'm fed up with these people, not doing something positive and just trying to get to reform.
Briefly, David, what did you make of the Rupert Lowe offer?
The man's a busted flush, isn't he? He's just a busted flush. He's got nowhere now to go. And as I hope I read correctly, he went to the Conservatives first to sort of like bash them over the head and say, look, this is what I'm going to do for you. And they chuck him out. So if it works, I go now. Oh, reform, that's the only one that's left, isn't it? The man's an idiot. He really is a complete idiot if he thinks people are going to agree to the terms that he can lay down with one person in Parliament and hardly a support behind him.
David, brilliant call. Thank you so much. Of course, Rupert Lowe will draw attention to the popular support he enjoyed in the Greater Manchester mayoral election and will argue that he's very proud of his project. It's all about opinions. More on that stabbing in Covent Garden. 4 men involved. No fatalities, but the police investigating.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Two minutes past 3. Good afternoon. Mark Dolan in for Ian Collins today, tomorrow and Friday. Great to have your company. We've got some very serious breaking news. A 47-year-old woman has been arrested after 4 men were stabbed in Covent Garden. No fatalities, but all 4 men have been rushed to hospital. And we have an update from police in the London Borough of Camden, who have said whilst at an early stage of the investigation, this is believed to be a mental health-related incident and encourage sensitive reporting in this case. Officers seized a pair of scissors at the scene. Police remain in the area with a scene in place on Endell Street and the surrounding areas of Covent Garden. But if you're just joining us, a 47-year-old woman arrested after 4 men were stabbed in central London. Meanwhile, what about a bit of politics and reform? Roar back to life. A new poll puts Farage's party on 23% ahead of Labour. So, is the Burnham bounce running out of, well, bounce? France hit out at reform's plans to use the Navy to send migrants home, whilst Spain show how it's done, clearing thousands from Ceuta in no time. And many thousands of domestic abusers are about to walk free under Labour's early release scheme. We'll bring you more on that. And our question this afternoon is a very simple one. Is illegal immigration a national emergency? 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note, and as the saying goes, let's talk. Now, we'll kick off this hour with a story that relates to the Conservatives and the leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch, who is facing mounting criticism after defending the Conservative Party's decision to give a second chance to a former neo-Nazi convicted over a campaign of anti-Semitic harassment by selecting him as a local election candidate. Kemi Badenoch says she believes in redemption and rehabilitation, but critics argue there are some pasts that should rule out public office. Let's get reaction now from Alex Hearn, who is the director of Labour Against Anti-Semitism. Hello, Alex.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
What do you make of this decision by the leader of the opposition?
I think Kemi needs to give her head a wobble. She should listen to his victims. The Jewish MP Luciana Berger's heartbreaking testimony is awful. He smirked in court, gave a Nazi salute to the gallery, and he produced deeply racist, misogynistic and pornographic material about her. So this isn't some kind of youthful indiscretion. This man ruined lives. Now, he may well be a reformed character and everyone deserves a second chance, but it should not be done in public office, considering the severity of his offences, and especially not for a mainstream party.
Most definitely, especially a mainstream party that has accused Labour of having an anti-Semitism problem.
Yeah, if they want to be seen as the party that opposes anti-Semitism and court Jewish votes, then this is a really poor idea. So what it's turned into is Kemi saying, can we get away with defending our own candidate? Which is really a much simpler and more self-interested question than the whole rehabilitation debate. And it just becomes this massive political misjudgment, which has turned into a crisis. It was a huge mistake to select him.
Why do you think Kemi went there? Because she's on a bit of a roll at the moment, and this feels like a misstep.
It is a huge misstep, and doubling down. Just on optics alone, I'm staggered to think this was allowed to go ahead. I mean, what on earth did they think was going to happen? How did they think that a party positioning itself against anti-Semitism would look?
She's actually spoken out. She's further developed her position on this and said the reason why this is acceptable is that the candidate was standing for local government, not parliament. She said, in essence, that a local councillor's job is about everyday local issues such as parking and bins. Does that help?
No. I'm okay with him getting any other kind of job to get his redemption arc. But being a councillor is very different. There are safeguarding issues. So he can find his redemption another way, but not in public office, where he could be exercising power over the very people he targeted. And I personally wouldn't want him as a councillor in my area. So how do people opt out of being safeguarded by him, from him? And some may even be his victims whose lives he ruined.
Is this double standards, though, given that many would take the view that it's the progressive left in this country, Alex, that have a real problem with anti-Semitism?
Well, both can be true, can't they? I mean, we saw that Reform have had issues. We've seen the Labour Party have issues, and that doesn't detract from this being an issue. And Kemi has rightly, in my opinion, attracted criticism over this, but she has created that opportunity for people to do that.
And how is the battle against anti-Semitism within the Labour Party going, Alex?
Well, it's very mixed, isn't it? I mean, the Labour Party is the party of government. And as we've seen with the latest figures, there has been some gross negligence when it comes to actually fighting anti-Semitism, not just building higher walls, not just spending money on protection, but actually combating it. And the most common form where people use the conflict in the Middle East as a pretext takes up a huge percentage of those incidents. 41% of racist attacks against Jews use that pretext. So if you're not combating that, which the Labour Party have never done since Jeremy Corbyn, then you're leaving out a vast amount of the attacks.
Were you surprised that the new leader of the Labour Party and our new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, on taking office, said that Labour did not get it right in its response to Israel and October the 7th and the aftermath?
I mean, what a first major public announcement on his policy. It was, in my opinion, highly irresponsible, given what I've just said about the conflict being the pretext for attacks against Jews. Yeah, it was terrible. And then going on having his first major interview on Gary Lineker's show, who posted about Zionism and with a rat twitching its tail. Yeah, really, really awful. And it suggests to me that he is, and the Labour Party are perhaps going for the Green Party vote, the Vote Gaza independence. And those people that vote for the Vote Gaza independence are never going to go back to the Labour Party because the Labour Party are not extreme enough for them.
No, I mean, what's so shocking, Simon, is that anti-Semitism is not just on the rise and it's not just tolerated, it's quite fashionable now. It's quite woke, isn't it? It's quite politically correct to be anti-Semitic. I mean, how did this happen?
Yeah, they don't seem to be any...
You're a good person if you're a bit anti-Semitic.
Yeah, you're one of the righteous ones, and there don't seem to be any social or professional consequences to that. And maybe that's why we've seen that there's more incidents in 6 months of 2026 than the whole year of 2022. The funny thing is, the hideous thing is that there was a spike in celebratory attacks after October the 7th that marked a new normal. You know, Hamas filmed themselves doing all this on October the 7th to send a signal to the world, to empower people. And now attacks are becoming increasingly violent. And in fact, every high-profile violent attack against Jews, wherever it happens in the world, generates excitement for racists who feel empowered, which in turn creates new spikes in attacks on British Jews. So you're right, anti-Jewish racism has become part of everyday life in Britain. And we say it's not the country, you know, this is not the country we are, but the facts tell us that this is exactly what the country is. It's a really damning indictment of how British society treats its smallest minorities. And I would say this is a national crisis, in fact.
Most definitely. And just briefly, Alex, if this Tory candidate had been guilty of racial harassment to a British person of colour, there's no way he'd be a candidate.
I don't know. I can't say that because that's speculation, but I would like to think that that would be the case. I don't think that any racism is acceptable or should be acceptable, and that people standing for public office should be held to high standards because of the safeguarding.
Well said. Alex, you do important work and more power to you in it. Alex Hearn is the director of Labour Against Anti-Semitism, which ought to be our collective battle. Simon is in Suffolk. Afternoon, Simon.
Good afternoon, Mark. How you doing?
I'm very well indeed. Now, what do you make of this decision by Kemi Badenoch to let this guy be a candidate, given his neo-Nazi past?
I've got to tell you, I think it's disgusting. I mean, they threw the guy out of Reform because he had a little tussle with his wife a few years ago when they were drunk. And then you bring in a Nazi, a former Nazi, come on. You can reform from that kind of thing, I hear. No. I just don't understand it. I don't understand the positioning of it. I don't understand why she would do it. Is she trying to move more far right than restore?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't speak well for her judgment, does it? And she's created a political headache for herself, Simon.
I mean, if he went into Labour, you wouldn't be surprised, would you? But the fact that they've come into the Tories is amazing. Is amazing, and they call everyone else racist, and then they actually employ a racist.
You couldn't make it up, could you? And Simon, listen, what do you think about our conversation this afternoon? Illegal immigration, is it an emergency or is that overstating it?
Of course it's an emergency. I'm one of the lucky ones who don't live near a big city, but I watch the things on telly, and I'll tell you, I'm 51 and I'm worried about my 19-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
I mean, it's getting to, especially with these massive training camps and stuff they're having. I mean, that really is a serious thought. One of them's right down the road from me in Suffolk. So that's a bit of a worry.
It's a massive worry, and 70,000 people, Simon, have entered the country illegally since Labour won the election. That is about 150 Crowboroughs. Crowborough is where they're having to accommodate 500 men. Small East Sussex town. And you know, Simon, what's happened now? You've got mums and dads are driving their kids to school. Previously, the kids would walk to school with their friends or go on a bicycle. Now they've got to go in the car. They've got crazy traffic, and women are not walking home from the pub in the evening.
And I don't know if you heard Alex Phillips the other day talking to this a Muslim guy who's an English Muslim guy.
Yeah.
And he reckons up to 75% of all Muslims are anti-Semitic. So that's
well, the stats
5,000. So 75% that's a big number. And then he said 20% of the 75% will actually be prepared to create extreme Islamist extremists. So 20% of 75% of 4 million, that's a lot of people. That's not just a couple of thousand, that's hundreds of thousands.
Well, so Simon, you're right. I'm really glad that you pointed that out. And I don't have the exact numbers, but I do know that a surprisingly large portion of the British Muslim population support Hamas and support Sharia law and other things which are incompatible with
I just want to say, we're being told it's 5 to 12, it's 5 past.
Do you feel that we're done? Do you think it's too late?
We are done. We are done. When they press that go button, I mean, look at October 7th. I mean, that's going to be everywhere. That will be everywhere.
So what you fear is major terror attacks now, homegrown.
Yeah. And do you know when they'll do it? If Nigel wins, they'll do it. Right then, that's it. Farage wins, that'll be the go day.
Well, Simon, let's pray that doesn't happen. And
let's pray. I don't believe in God, but even I'm praying for it to not happen.
It might be the moment, and I understand why you care so much for your daughter. I'm the same. I've got 2 sons, and it's about them, isn't it? It's not about us. It's about the future and making sure that the Britain that we grew up with and knew and loved isn't lost forever. Simon, call me again soon. Really enjoyed our chat. Georgina is in the capital. Hello, lovely Georgina.
Hello, good afternoon to you. I mean, we've got no future our children, Mark, if we don't get this sorted. I mean, illegal immigration is a national emergency, and it's been so for many years, as it meets every aspect of our lives, including the cost of living, because we are having to pay for these waifs and strays. Our country is not a dumping ground for illegal migrants, Mark. We can see the consequences that our country is facing because of illegal immigration. The standard of living has dropped where these people are placed. You can't deny the rising crime. People cannot sell where these HMOs are because nobody wants to live where these people are. And the only people who will not admit this is the government. You can't stand aside and keep gaslighting when the problems are staring you in the face. The majority of the country is now sick and tired of picking up the ever-increasing tab that these people are costing. And they're fed up of the illegal immigrants being prioritised before them where doctors, dental, housing and hospital is concerned. These governmental bodies don't have to live alongside these people. So it's a case of I'm all right, Jack. That this immigration emergency, Mark, has been going on for years, and yet none of the prior governments or the government we have now have the political will to do anything about it. We're the ones paying the price, Mark. It's our shops getting robbed. It's our people getting attacked and our children being abused, and the government stands by and does nothing. It isn't difficult to stop this problem. But whilst we're bound by the ECHR rules, our hands are tied. These governments, the government's human rights lawyers and the laws of the ECHR will be the ruination of our country. And if left as it stands for much longer, there will be no country left to save. My advice, Mark, would be to send them back. Men, women and children, no exceptions. No more boats be allowed to dock on our shores. Stop the incentives and do what should have been done decades ago, which is have the stringent control over our borders and to put the people and our country first.
Yes, and we're on the clock, aren't we, Georgina? Because if we have a left-wing progressive alliance at the next election, I suspect we're done for.
Well, if we don't do something and we don't do it quick, then we are past the point of no return. There will be no country to save, Mark. The people know it, you know it, everyone knows it, apart from the government. We have to have a change of government.
Georgina, thank you for a brilliant call. Have a good Wednesday afternoon. We will speak soon. Is illegal immigration a national emergency? More to come. This is Talk.
Do Reform, however, have a plan to build more prisons?
Yeah, 100%. So we will have overseas prisons. We will deport all foreign prisoners to their point of origin. Like Labour has done with some, by the way. Do you remember one of them one of an illegal migrant from Ethiopia, they sent him back straight away.
Yeah.
There was no returns agreement, or they had no problem with that.
Why can't that just happen?
Why can't that just happen now? So that's one thing we do. So we free up about 12,000 spaces just doing that.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Dan in Hampshire, good afternoon, Mark. I have to agree with your previous caller. It's more like 5 past midnight for the country. The influx has just been too big and the Muslim community never questions things when there are attacks, etc. There are already gatherings such as Jalsa Salana with over 50,000 attendees. Anyone who doesn't think there isn't planning in these gatherings for future events, I have a bridge in London to sell them. Sarah in Weymouth. Hi, Mark. Georgina is completely right. She also reminds me of the lovely late, great Anne Widdecombe. Has she considered being an MP? Sarah, she'd be amazing. Thank you for your text and your kind words about the show. Clay in Folkestone. Hi, Mark. Kemi was wrong to appoint the neo-Nazi, but what appalls me is the Labour Party supporter condemning it, but accepting convicted criminal Louise Haigh to the cabinet. And Mark in Essex, this decision by Kemi is absolutely disgusting. I studied history and saw what the Nazis did to the Jews. I visited Dachau, Belsen, Auschwitz and Treblinka, and anyone who could advocate for those things can never be forgiven. Mark, thank you for that. Is illegal immigration a national emergency? Paul is in Newport. Good afternoon, Paul.
Hello, Mark. How are you doing?
I'm very well. Top of the afternoon. How are conditions in Newport today?
It's very hot. Very hot. Another hot, sunny day in Newport.
Yeah, hot and humid, right? You need to jump in the sea.
Yeah, well, I'm right by a river. I could jump in that. Not there's much of a river there, to be honest. But
well, that would do it. So, Paul, what do you think of all of this?
I think for many, certainly the people my sort of cohort of friends and those I speak to, immigration is far and away the biggest issue. But it's not just the boats, okay? The boats, when we talk about it, we see the boat as another boat, and it's a bit like watching someone bring fuel to throw on the fire. There are 250, 300,000 illegals already here, and they're literally sucking us down the pan, okay?
Yeah.
And so every time we see some more come over, we're like, whoa, 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 whoa. We can't cope with what we've got. The ones that we've got are absolutely dragging us down. And so it is the biggest issue because there's no part of or very few parts of our daily lives that aren't affected by it. So you try and get into schools, you try and get a dentist, you try and get a doctor. The police are absolutely snowed under with all of this stuff. And so to me, it's clearly by a square mile ahead of everything else. If I can just, you asked earlier, why is reform leading the polls?
Yeah.
Even after it's worse thing. And again, so I speak not only for myself, but I speak for the friends that I speak to. And we're all we are the 9 to 5, get up 7 o'clock on the road, go to work, pay your taxes, all this sort of stuff. That's who we are, okay? And so we recognise that not only Nigel, okay, but the established parties and parts of the media are absolutely gunning for them, aren't they? I mean, you see it every day. And so if it's not Nigel, they were on about Richard Tice the other day. They've been on about Lee Anderson. It was bizarre that the last week or the week before, it came out that the Labour, when the fox hunting ban was brought about, the Labour Party did that because they were given a £1 million donation from some animal-type group, okay? And there's a quote, track this down, read the broadsheets, and there's a very well-known Labour guy, I can't remember his name, well-known to everyone but me, obviously. He said, we all knew that. We knew what we would do. We took this donation of £1 million, and in return we passed the sort of fox hunting ban. Well, is that democracy, is it? So now, not only can you buy yourself a knighthood and you can buy yourself into the House of Lords, you can buy yourself a law. Well, what on earth is going on?
It is truly shocking.
The whole thing's bust.
It is, and it's lost public confidence. And it's the governing elite, isn't it? It's the establishment, Paul. They've all got to go.
Well, the thing is, I think, and again, I mean, I'll probably lose a few of your callers for you here, but I truly, truly, truly want Nigel and Farage to get in, okay? Because I think the problems are so big, that unless someone comes in with the spine to take it full on, and let's face it, okay, Nigel has been under the cosh for years now, and the good old boy's still there. He's not backing down. He's not going, I need holiday. He's not saying it's too much for me, my mental health, blah, blah. He's sticking to his guns, and I applaud him for that. Doesn't matter what you throw at him, he stands there, he says, these are my beliefs. So they're not changed today. These are my beliefs. And it doesn't matter what you say, sticks and stones, all that sort of stuff. And he's stuck to his guns. And I really, really hope Nigel gets in and does a bit. Even if he's only there for one term, but in that one term, he gets everything moving back in the right direction.
Paul, brilliant call. I will let you cool down in that river and we will speak soon. Thank you for your common sense and also your passion as well, Paul. Really appreciate that. Interesting conversation. Tristan is in Bedford. Afternoon, Tristan.
Afternoon, Mark. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm on top of the world. I love this country and all is not lost, but we're on borrowed time, I think.
Yes, I think we are. I mean, I agree with all those sentiments. Absolutely. I mean, I do live in a nice place, nice area. You know, I haven't really seen, you know, how bad the immigration situation is. But a friend of mine who we always used to talk about sport and different things like that, never really politics. But the things what I've started noticing, some of my friends who I'd never spoke about politics, I'm now talking about politics with them. And that's something that seems to ring alarm bells.
Because it's affecting people's lives, isn't it?
Exactly. It's making a huge difference. And the thing is, as like I was saying to your researcher, is, you know, now we had Keir Starmer in and he kept saying slogans and different things and nothing happened. It was just words. And the thing is, what's happened is the situation with the boats has just escalated further. And obviously, we've got legal immigration as well on top of that. But they just say words, they don't actually do anything. And because they keep saying these things, they've got literally zero credibility. I mean, Andy Burnham's been in for like 2 weeks and he's gone on holiday. So he doesn't seem to be taking it seriously at all.
Well, it's the biggest job in the country. He's tried 3 times to be the leader of the Labour Party, 3rd time lucky. And I personally would not be taking a holiday after getting the biggest job in the land.
No, he seems so absolutely aloof. It's unbelievable. He just seems like so laid back with everything. Oh, yeah, don't worry about it. Yeah, it's not that bad. And it's like, are you seriously brain dead? Can't you see what's going on? It seems absolutely bizarre.
Well, it seems apparently the answer, Tristan, is to give pubs an extra £1,000 a year, which will not touch the sides, to save us 45 quid on our electricity bills, even though inflation means the bills will go up by 90. So we're still...
The energy cap will keep going up as well. You have to remember that. The energy cap's going to keep going
up. So they
well.
take with one hand and give with the other, don't they? And he thinks the answer is also an office in the north of England called Number 10 North and more power for mayors. Well, the Greater Manchester mayor was just elected, Tristan, on 25% of the votes. 25% turnout.
Everyone I've spoke to has never mentioned about devolution. Not one person that says anything about devolution. I mean, it's like he's putting his head in the sand. It literally is nothing anyone is interested in.
Well, I think it's because he wants to look like he's got ideas and he wants to look like he's got a plan.
Well, I mean, just things like, I really, you know, we are getting to a situation where, you know, it is getting near enough untenable. I think 2029, Nigel gets in and has to do something. And I do agree with what one of the previous callers said. I'm worried when he does get in what the backlash will be as regards to, well, you know, something like a terrorist attack or
civil disorder, and then that's before you get to the blob, the bureaucracy effectively going on strike and thwarting a Farage agenda.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, at the moment, what have you got? Everything at the moment, the press, they concentrate on reform and they ignore everything about what's going on with the government. I mean, Andy Burnham's gone on holiday and we've got, you know, a literal criminal in charge of the country. Now, if you switch that around another Conservative or a right-leaning person has took over, there would be uproar. It would be wall-to-wall going on about it. But it's because it's Labour, crickets.
I mean, what about this, Tristan? Do we owe Andy Burnham a bit of a chance here? Give him a crack of the whip? Give him the opportunity to prove himself?
No, because of what's happened with the prison release situation now. Now some of the people are going to be released. I mean, I can't believe some of the people that are actually going to be released. It's absolutely sickening, to be honest with you, especially what happened to PC Harper. I mean, that is absolutely sickening. They could quite easily backdate that law. So anyone who murdered or attacked any of the emergency services, they could backdate that law so it doesn't So it's not going to be relevant to this prisoner release scheme. And domestic abusers, I mean, they could quite easily release people that haven't committed an actual physical violent crime. And there is so many options they have. And I'm sorry, but it's almost purposeful choosing not to do it. That's how it comes across to me. It just seems they literally do not want to do what needs to be done and what can be done.
With this policy, the public will be less safe, and make of that what you will. Tristan, thank you for the call. Always enjoy chatting to you in the afternoon. Tristan in Bedford there. Lots more to come. Is illegal immigration a national emergency?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Sally has messaged the show, "Hi Mark, we are done, I'm afraid. Migration of all kinds, especially from Muslim countries, has finished the UK. It's like a nightmare that we won't wake up from. Wait till the factions of sub-Saharan Africa start falling out with each other. It will be chaos." What about this from Steve? "Hi Mark, all immigration is a national emergency. This is all part of the UN plan of repopulation. This has been going on since Tony Blair. We need to repeal all of the laws that man passed." And Christine says, "Mark, you're so right. It is a national emergency and should have been for a few years now. I feel this country is beyond repair. Too late now." What a sober assessment that is. John is in London. Hello, John.
Hello, Mark. How are we doing?
I'm very well indeed. And I think you object to the term illegal immigrants.
Well, there's 2 points I object to, Mark. And one is broadcasters keep coming up with a comment of illegal immigrants. And the other one is they keep saying about these people that break into our country. Now, my understanding of illegal is if you do something illegal, you will be brought to book by the law for it. These people come into our country, we pick them up, we bring them in, we feed them, we give them money, we give them phones. That's not the way you would treat someone that's doing something illegally. And the other reference to breaking into our country, how are they breaking in? We bring them in, we welcome them in with open arms. They're not breaking in, are they?
Yep. You've got NGOs encouraging these crossings. You've got the RNLI and Border Force who are literally escorting them onto our shores.
But the thing is, and this is why I'm raising this. I listen to this programme all the time, but your commentators continuously come up with illegal immigration and breaking in, which to me, neither of them are right.
So what would you call it? Just open borders or something like that?
Yeah, no, I would call it that. I mean, my other sort of one for people to think about is, and the country is lost. If you look at the amount of immigrants we've got now, how long is it going to be before all of these immigrants band together? And they'd outnumber the British Army. Even if we sent the army in, we couldn't get them out because they now outnumber our British Army, and it won't be long before they outnumber our woke police force.
Well, it's 70,000 men have entered.
Really troubled times.
Predominantly men, 70,000 illegal immigrants since Labour won the election. That's bigger, I think, than our army.
Yeah, exactly. So it's only a matter of time before this country erupts, unfortunately. It's only a matter of time.
And how do you see that playing out, John?
I would probably say that this is probably what the establishment are playing for, as in they want to turn the British people. They want to bring up some form of civil war, because that will give them their reason to then enforce martial law.
Yeah, or an authoritarian government.
Rubbish that they're trying to bring
Well, it's the same reason why I believe that if there's an economic crash, which is likely to happen in the next couple of years, that this Labour government can have an emergency budget, and it will be for the same reason.
Mark, what would you, as someone who obviously is quite an intelligent chap and does all these shows, why do you believe this is being allowed to happen?
I think that it's ideological. I think that what's happened is that these Western governments have started hating their countries, hating their history, apologising for the past. So you've just got an establishment that is self-loathing, can't stand the working class, doesn't believe in nationhood and patriotism. I think it's leftist progressivism, John. I think it's woke. It's an anti-Western mindset. And I also think it's an insanity. It's like a fever dream. It's just like a lack of common sense. I mean, Elon Musk calls it the woke virus. And I think this leftist progressivism has infiltrated our public institutions without a single vote being cast. That's what I think, John. I think they've got a pathological sympathy for people crossing the channel in dinghies. And you would do. If you hate your own country, you wouldn't enforce its borders.
See, I think this will all stem, again, just a thought. If you look at what's happening with our politicians, and I don't agree with any of it, if you look at what's happened with Mr. Amos and the others, our political class are slowly but surely making themselves hate figures.
Yeah. Well, they are, and the same thing has happened to the same thing's happened to the media, John. And people hate the mainstream media for the same reason, because they feel lied to. We saw it during COVID. We've seen it in regard to illegal immigration. The country, the people are being gaslit, and now they're angry.
Yeah, and that's why when you hear of these politicians all saying, we want protection, we want security, well, hang on a minute. Stop lying to people. Represent the people that actually put you in the position you're in, and don't make yourselves hate figures, because that's what they're doing. They're making themselves hate figures and then trying to blame it on the public as something that they're doing.
Well, if you look at the big policies that we've had over the last few years in this country, courtesy of both Tory and Labour governments, you've had net zero, John. That's bad news for the population, because it's going to increase the cost of energy. So that is a project that has come from the elite that is against the interests of the people, especially the poor. Open borders creates social division, crime, there is a terror threat, major national security headache, and it costs a fortune. So open borders are really bad for the people of this country, especially the poor. Look at the COVID reaction, John. The lockdowns didn't need to happen. Texas, Florida, Sweden did not lock down. But in this country, we had an authoritarian approach where they took over our lives and destroyed the economy. Those three things have all got the same thing in common, which is state overreach, John. Open borders, net zero, COVID lockdowns.
Well, if you can look at that yourself now. You can look at what's going on in the States with Fauci taking the Fifth Amendment and being pardoned.
Well, that's it. But those three things, right? If you look at Matt Hancock, if you look at those three things, the lockdowns, net zero, and the open borders, John, these are policies that have been inflicted on the population by those who govern us.
But here's a thought for you, Mark, before I go. Now, we talk about the left and we talk about the right. Yeah. Put them into what I would call wings. And what do wings connect? They connect to the same body of the establishment. So where we're saying the left done this and the right done that, they all work for the same establishment, all of them. They're all just puppets. Whether you look at Andy Burnham or whether you look at Kemi Badenoch,
Boris,
they're all puppets working for the same establishment. Yeah, Boris, Hancock, the lot of them. Do you honestly think Farage is not part of all of that?
Well, some people think he is. So what is your view on Farage? I mean, you know, if we're going to have a revolution, if we're going to basically chuck the establishment out at every level, John, is Farage the man to do it or not?
I personally like what he stands for, but I wouldn't trust him as far as I can throw him. I wouldn't trust him. I wouldn't trust any of them. I wouldn't trust any of them that say that, you know, they're people. If you look at, you know, Lee Anderson, or if you look at Jenrick, or if you look at once the grass stops to grow on where they are, they jump onto the next lawn. And they're not doing it for the people. They're not doing it to represent us. They're doing it to line their own pockets. And they will jump on whatever bandwagon is moving the fastest.
John, brilliant call. Really enjoyed our long chat. Thank you very much for that. Do join me again soon and have a nice Wednesday afternoon. Fascinating conversation. Grace is in Ealing. Afternoon, Grace.
Good afternoon.
Now, Grace, you want to talk about anti-Semitism because it's very interesting. Kemi Badenoch has allowed a former neo-Nazi to be a Tory candidate in the local elections. What do you make of that decision?
I feel there are so many things to say following on from what John said. One thing that I really need to just point out before I get on to what I had called it about was he referenced Amos, presumably David Amos, who was murdered. And then he said politicians are making themselves hate figures. I'm sorry, but that's despicable. You can't go around blaming a man who was murdered for the fact that he was killed. You might not like politicians, but you can't say they're making themselves hate figures, oh, look, one of them got killed. That's essentially what John was doing.
Well, that is definitely wrong, and I certainly wouldn't entertain that idea. I felt that what he was saying is that because politicians are not straight with the public and gaslighting them about what's happening to the country, that there's a lot of public anger out there. Do you not think that's what he was saying?
I can see that he might have been trying to make that point, but by mentioning David Amos alongside that point, he was effectively victim-blaming David Amos, who was killed. And I think fundamentally what really matters is the values that people hold to.
Do you know what I think, Grace? I mean, I don't want to put words in John's mouth, but I think that he was just plucking David Amos out of thin air as an example of a politician murdered by a member of the public. But I think, as you say, the context and background to that in regard to David Amos was very different. As that guy, David Amos, wouldn't have said boo to a goose, didn't harm a fly. But I think what John was saying is that at a certain point, you know, there's a lot of hatred towards politicians and they will get murdered. He wasn't, I don't think, saying that was a good thing.
I don't think he was trying to say that it was a good thing. I think he, without realising what he was doing, he implied that this kind of thing is just bound to happen if people don't like politicians. And we need to be careful with when we say things like that. And fundamentally, like I'm saying, what matters is the values that a person has in their heart and mind right now, and to just detest politicians in a way that leads to them being hurt is not okay, even if you dislike their politics.
I agree.
And with the guy who I called in about, Joshua Bonehill Payne, I believe, I think that the views that he held previously are utterly despicable beyond words. I am deeply concerned about how I am seeing more and more white supremacism and views like that on the rise, including someone who had an argument with Julia Hartley-Brewer on the programme yesterday, and she made a good case in arguing against him, but it's quite clear that these views are becoming more and more prevalent, and it's very worrying. And I appreciate people like yourself pointing out that the issue in our country is not actually about skin colour, but clearly some people wrongly think that it is. So this guy, Joshua Bonehill-Payne, previously had utterly unacceptable views. At the same time, it would seem that right now he does seem to have genuinely reformed. I read that one of the things he did was to accuse Jewish people of being responsible for Jesus' death, which is theologically erroneous. And Jesus obviously taught that all of us are offered forgiveness if we're genuinely repentant. And I think that that is something that has influenced our British values. And I think it's a really important principle that if one is truly contrite, then one can have a fresh start. And I think that Jesus offers us that, but I think it's also helpful in society that we make that available to people. And I think that Joshua Bonehill-Payne now, as some other people with difficult pasts have done, is doing good work to try and mitigate extremism and help to inform the police or other authorities on how they can prevent this problem in future. So I think that in itself is a good thing, but we do need to look very carefully at people who are saying that they're reformed, because sometimes people will be disingenuous about that, and we need to crack down on neo-Nazism that currently exists. Maybe instead of saying, you know, what can we do about this person who used to be a neo-Nazi, let's say, what can we do about current neo-Nazis, because we are seeing more of that.
Most definitely. Grace, thank you for your call. Grace in Ealing there, calling out the scourge of anti-Semitism. Lots more to come. Don't forget, Kevin O'Sullivan live at 4 p.m, but we'll take one or two more calls on our big question of the day. Is illegal immigration a national emergency? Is it the number one problem facing the country? This is Talk.
A week now spent learning the detailed ropes and the administration and all the problems that will face him a month or 6 weeks later on when events in the Commons, events elsewhere start hitting him. So I think he will come to regret it. I understand it's not just been in a job for a fortnight. He's fought an exhausting by-election. He was Mayor of Greater Manchester. So I understand why he's gone, but I just think practically he is making a mistake.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Is illegal immigration a national emergency? Amy's been busy with the voice notes. This is Vicky in London.
Good afternoon, Mark. Great show as always. I must agree with your previous caller, or your latest caller, John. By the way he's explained, we are calling him illegal. 100% right. Fair play to John. Obviously, the only illegal I can see is our government allowing this to happen. John is 100% right. Fair play, John. Thumbs up to you. Great show as always. Yes, it's our government. They're not illegal. They are bought here, as he says. They put up phones, money, you name it. They've got more than people that have fought for our country. Veterans on our streets, not even got a roof, that have fought for our country. 100% John. Fair play to you. Take care. Have a good afternoon.
Vicky, brilliant voice note, and thank you for your kind words about the show and your common sense. Ken's in Lancashire. Let's take a listen to his voice note.
You've asked the question, is the migration crisis a national emergency? Well, yes, of course it is. Can you imagine the ISIS leaders trying to decide where can we go in Europe or anywhere in the Western world and set up our own state? What's the easiest target for us? The first thing that's in the face would be Great Britain, because first of all, we're an island, so it'd be more difficult for other nations to come and assist. Not that anyone would actually want to, I wouldn't have thought. But you go to Great Britain, you get as many people in as you can, you start the revolt, you take it over, and you've got a Muslim state in the West. It's a joke, and I can't believe the politicians don't want to do anything about it.
Well, thank you for that. And actually, it was a previous voice note that said we're not a serious country, and I think that was very well put, and that ties in with your brilliant voice note. Victor is in Bedfordshire. Hi, Victor. You are the last caller of the show. Good afternoon, sir.
I think we should be concerned about the proposal by Shabana Mahmood of safe routes for asylum seekers, assuming they are asylum seekers.
Why do you need a safe route if you're coming from a safe country?
Well, this is what she's proposing, safe routes for asylum seekers.
I mean, that is just political shorthand for more illegal immigration, isn't it?
Does that mean that the channel crossings come to an end? I don't think it does, because if you're closing, if you want to open another door, another corridor, you have to close the other one first. Or it could also be that these people coming over illegally suddenly decide to have a go by the safe route.
Well, I totally agree. I think all you're going to do is have more illegal immigration. You're probably going to double the numbers. Victor, great call. Really enjoyed that. We're coming to the end of the show. Let's squeeze in a quick voice note from Vicky. Ken in... Oh, wait a minute. Did we lose... We lost two, didn't we? There you go. Let's take Mark. Here we go. Mark in London.
Hello, mate. It's Mark from London. I just wanted to say about this people not affected. I live in South East London. I live near the Elizabethan line train thingamajig at least 2-3 times a week. If I go around to the shops just to go and buy a bottle of Coke or something, if I hear 10 conversations, not a single one of them will be in English. Not a single one will have an English accent. I mean, at least what, 5-10 years ago, you'd hear a lot of foreign accents, but people were speaking English. Now nobody does. That's how I'm affected. Keep up the good work. Cheers, mate.
Mark, thank you. And it is the United Kingdom and the language is English, but you wouldn't know it in some places. Here's Gavin Dorset.
Just listening to that gentleman going on about the cost, I've just had a quick look online. £134 million a week is what illegal immigration processing and asylum seeking is costing us. £134 million a week. There's only one way to stop it. It's not down to the Navy. It's down to our politicians stopping the payments and stopping them, offering them a golden calf. It's as simple as that. Cut the money off, they'll go back home.
Well, Kevin O'Sullivan is up at 4.